For those who don't know, now you know, baby. This is Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling with Hot Rod Biggs and some special guest, Jared Jimmy Street. We're going to take them to the limit one more time, baby, right here on Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
This is Steve Bowtie Bryant here. Back in the 90s, I was a pro wrestling photographer for the South, and I released what might have been one of the original sets of indie trading cards. I ran across some of these original sets. They were up in Randall Fanning's attic all this time. PG-13 rookie card, Ricky Morton, George Weingroff as the Sheik, Chris Champion, Reno Riggins, Billy Montana, Gary Valiant, the Scorpion, the Medic, Rick Reynolds, Jeff Daniels, Mephisto and Dante, Ben Jordan, Steve Neely, Marcus Woodrow, Clinton Charisma, Little Farmer John. If you'd like an opportunity to get these cards, contact me now. You can get them for only $49.99. Contact me at Steve Bowtie Bryant at iCloud.com. Get your set now while supplies last.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome one more time to the Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling podcast. And today I've got, as always, my brother from the same father and mother, the Plastic Sheik, Jared Street. What's up, Sheik? How you doing today, buddy?
Not much, brother. Just good to be your tag team partner for life. For life. Life.
Yeah, man. Well, you definitely are that. You know, I got to start off by saying we got an excellent show today. As you read on the welcome mat, today we have the one and only Hot Rod Biggs on the show. If you're not familiar with Hot Rod Biggs, I understand. He's very well known in the Middle Tennessee area where I had my little turn at bat, and he has really had a cool career, wrestled a lot of awesome people, and honestly just has some great stories to tell. So even if you haven't heard his name and you normally listen to us anyway, go ahead and listen just to a little bit of the story, and then I think you'll stick around for the rest of it, because like I said, Hot Rod Biggs is the man. Trust me on that. So, you know, to kind of go back a little bit, we've had some shows in our rearview mirror. You know, we had, of course, Shane Morton, which is now just crossed so many barriers. I don't even know that his numbers can be broken at this point, maybe.
And new reigning champion.
Yeah, we said that about Greg Gagne too, though, so who knows, right? But, you know, and Jeff Daniels is still there too, so they're all kind of still hanging in the top three there very strongly. Gotta appreciate all y'all for that so much. And we can tell that you stuck around and listened to our Mount Rushmore of managers. The funny thing is I had Jared, I said, Jared, let's do a Sheik short, kind of just saying each of our picks, you know, so maybe it'll bring him to the episode to listen. And what I noticed in that we clearly didn't notice during the show, maybe you did, but I didn't, is that you picked 3 Pauls.
I didn't notice until you mentioned it.
And I picked 3 Jimmys. And I know, I get it. Some people's going to be like, what are you talking about? Jimmy Hart, James J. Dillon, okay, and then Jim Cornette, who also goes by Jimmy to those who know him. I almost wish now that I would have picked Father James Mitchell or somebody like that
would be great.
Instead of Gary
But then
Hart.
you would have to leave Gary Hart off. There's no way you could leave Gary Hart off.
There is 0 chance I could have done that. And, you know, people would have been like, you can't pick yourself, Jimmy. So, you know, but it was just so funny. I was like, you know, 3 Pauls and a Brain and 3 Jimmys and a Gary.
Who's the 4th Paul I could have picked? I don't know.
Oh, man, that's a good one, you know.
I was trying to think that when you mentioned that, I couldn't put that off the top of my head. So
Yeah, I can't. If you guys out there in listener land think of another manager named Paul, and I'm sure on the indies there's a Paul somewhere.
Yeah, there's some.
But tell me a real manager with the name Paul, because I think we did a pretty pretty decently thorough job of going through them. And anyway, 3 Pauls and 3 Jimmys later, we had a Mount Rushmore of managers episode that y'all listen.
Oh, Paul Jones.
Oh, dude, Paul Jones.
But I would have never picked him. Though,
I love you, Paul Jones. Yeah, Jared, good job. I love you, Paul Jones, but man, I think I even brought Paul Jones up.
Yeah, I think you did.
See, I told you we covered everybody. Anyway, so yeah, but I couldn't ever. It's like you could never take the brain off your list.
I mean, you'd have to replace Bobby Heenan with Paul Jones. No offense, that would be crazy talk, though.
Then the YouTube comments would have really blown up.
YouTube comments would have burned us down.
Imagine you taking Brain off, picking Paul Jones, me taking Gary Hart off and picking Jimmy Street. You know, that just it's just not going to be happening.
I saw we had you one comment was like, y'all didn't put Bobby Heenan on there? And you were like, did you listen to the episode?
Yeah, I was like, that was kind of, it was pretty apparent that both of us really wanted to pick Bobby the Brain, but at the same time, to make enough time for everybody, we went ahead and split that up. But anyway, thank y'all again, especially, seems like y'all enjoy those episodes. We do notice one thing, our interviews seem to do a little better through the apps, and our topics seem to do a little bit better through YouTube, which, hey, is awesome. However you are ingesting this show, we thank you immensely. And honestly, I don't know what to say. It's just 2 brothers from Southwestern Virginia that love to talk about pro wrestling. And, it really kind of blows my mind that y'all do support us like you do, but we do greatly appreciate it. So with that being said, we're going to prove to you that we appreciate it so much by shutting up.
Shutting up and getting to it. So stick around for these messages. We're going to be right back with the one and the only Hot Rod Biggs. Be right back.
Hey guys, this is Wolfie D from PG-13. Check out my podcast, Live and in Color with Wolfie D, every Monday at noon. We're talking Memphis. We're talking ECW, WCW, WWF, everywhere that I've been. We even have some great guests, some Hall of Famers on the show with us. Every Monday, Live and in Color with Wolfie D.
That's right, it's the talk of Middle Tennessee, the channel you love to hate and the channel you hate to love. It's Brian Turner from Brian Turner's VHS Rehab. And if you're looking for matches from Wolfie D to Jerry Lawler to Dusty Rhodes and the team that put a pimp before your eyes and a goatee between your thighs, Booty Call and Athena, go to lostwrestling.com. See, I made it easy for you. Brian Turner's VHS Rehab. Booyah.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome one more time to the Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling podcast. And today, y'all, to say that I'm excited for this guest is an understatement. One of my favorite people from the Middle Tennessee scene. Y'all know I love a lot of them out there, but at the same time, Hot Rod Biggs has always held a very special place in my heart. Welcome to the show, Hot Rod Biggs.
You are too kind, brother. You are too kind. Glad to be here. Glad to be here, Jimmy.
Thank you for being here. That's the important part. So, but I told you earlier on, I said, we just kind of take it easy. We treat this kind of like a car trip to a show. I'll be driving, you be a shotgun, Jared's in the back, making sure, everything's going good there. But we're just going to take a car trip to whatever show we're about to do and have some fun while we're doing it. Okay. So we're all gassed up and ready to go, and let's ask some questions. So very first question that I always start with goes to my co-host, Jared Plastic Sheik Street. Start us off, Jared.
So, Hot Rod, this is a question I like to ask every guest. It kind of lets the listeners and lets us know maybe what influenced you or what you've saw in your wrestling career. But you're like Mount Rushmore. You're like top 4 or 5 wrestlers that have impacted you or you like to watch. Or whatever, just your top 4 or 5 wrestlers of all time.
Very easy question to answer there for you, brother. Superstar Bill Dundee, Buddy Landale, Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, Jerry Lawler. Call me a mark. That's 5.
Wow. That's the quickest answer, man. I love it.
Record time, man.
I didn't even have any notes on that one. We're good.
That's awesome, man.
Buddy Landale, Bill Dundee. I was 12 years old. I got reeled in. Dutch Mantel. Let me throw number 6 in there. They reeled me in and I've been there ever since, man. 1983 forward.
I love it. I love it. Those are great guys. I mean, that's a Mount Rushmore for wrestling, in my opinion. You know what I mean? So, and I can actually see small elements of all those guys in your ring career too, you know, and that's awesome, man. So, well, let me start off with this then, since, you know, you got that one out of the way in record time. So talk about your younger days. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
Right here in Nashville, Tennessee, brother. Born and raised. Grew up at the Nashville Sports Arena, where I was able to main event later in my life. That was my Madison Square Garden, man. I never cared about venturing out. Most guys get into professional wrestling to take it wherever they can take it. I was content once I hit the fairgrounds.
Oh, man, that is the Mecca, right? Come on, that's the place. So, okay, where'd you go to high school? Where were you about your school days?
I graduated from Pearl Cone in 1992. I'm an old man now, and you know, did the music thing, did the wrestling thing, did all kind of extracurricular things, and it led to pro wrestling by the time I was 19. Thanks to a gentleman you know as Kid Sensation or Jason Nation, maybe you probably know Jason Nation. He and I go back to Little League. I wouldn't be here talking to either of you gentlemen right now if it weren't for Jason. Jason, shout out if you hear this. Jason preceded me. He went through Ben Jordan and trained and kind of got the nerves and butterflies out of the way. And I said, well, you know, if Jason can handle it, then I'm going to give it a shot. And I looked Moondog's spot up at the fairgrounds. I had a family tie-in that I was kind of unaware at the onset. And, you know, Moondog didn't speak to me for a few weeks. He worked the gimmick and, he couldn't speak, whatnot, so they came, but I kept coming back. I offered him I made him an offer he couldn't refuse. And thank God he didn't refuse it. And 3 or 4 months in a tobacco barn through summer of 1995 and August 4th, 1995, Jason and I rolled down. My very first match was in Smithville, Tennessee. The second match was ironically at Jake's Auction Barn in McMinnville, both with Jason Nation. And the rest is history, man.
Wow, that's awesome. So Jason is a great dude. I got to know him working on down the line, you know, but you talked about it just a quick little bit there. You played some Little League. Did you play football and stuff like that in high school? What were you in high school? You were the rock and roller in high school, right?
Rock and roller, man. Sports were never my thing, man. My daddy was buried on my 7th birthday. I seen my life ending at 28. My whole childhood, it sounds ridiculous at this age to look back and say that, but I figured that 28 was my cutoff, so I poured everything I could into everything that I could along the way. So sports weren't my thing. I to this day, I don't watch football. I couldn't tell you who does what. And played Little League, and I started playing guitar when I was 12 years old, and up and down. I've actually had to reteach myself how to play these last few months after my neck surgery, hand debacle, and, you know, fingers are paralyzed and things like that. So definitely been a wake-up call, but started with guitar, and it's circling back to that now. It's wrestling and music, man. That rock and wrestling connection reeled me in just like my top 6 did.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That's definitely what grabbed us as well. You know, we love that rock and wrestling. I've got such great nostalgia on that. But real quick, so, you know, I'm also a musician. You maybe didn't know that, but I think we talked about that in the past. I picked up the bass and guitar at 12 years old myself, got a bass for Christmas one year, and I was in it to win it from then on. Talk about your band, man. I've heard some of the music. It was very of the era kind of metal. Talk about your first band, or talk about the band that did those demos that we've heard online.
Oh, man, I had no idea those were even available. I was trying to see where you were going. That's news to me. Thrash, man. Thrashing, hard rocking, ass kicking, slamming hoodlums. THRASH. Habitual thrash we evolved to. Definitely influenced by DRI, Metallica, Slayer. I mean, man, I'm liable to play anything from George Jones to Jim Croce to Deicide. I mean, I had a musical taste all over the place. I mean, we just, you know, 10th grade, we decided we're going to give it a shot, see if we can put back then, you know, these kids today, man, don't even know what the hell a cassette tape is. But we were going to put a cassette tape out, and we pursued that in 1991. We got a little demo together, you know, sold a few 100 copies to our friends, went out and just played some local venues, skating rings, you know, VFWs, anywhere, high school gyms, anywhere that would let us in to play. It was the Vanilla Ice era, so, you know, we were kind of at odds there. But You know, I was introduced to Metallica in the 9th grade. I'd not even heard, you know, I didn't get called up until, I didn't get Master of Puppets, Ride the Lightning, and Kill 'Em All until And Justice for All came out. So I had some catching up to do. A good friend of mine is no longer with us. His name was Richard Slate. I hope his kids are listening. Turned me on to Metallica. He kind of forced it down my throat. I honestly didn't even like, I couldn't wrap my brain around that offbeat on Master of Puppets Forever.
Right,
now that's like,
right.
Yeah. But I had to force it on myself, and a little peer pressure kind of, I got to do this to fit in. Maybe I hadn't really thought about it from that perspective, but it was not a natural fit with the metal. But man, once it got in the blood, brother, it got in the blood.
Yeah. Well, you know, and a lot of the guys that and I'm not knocking Metallica. I'm a huge Metallica fan too. They actually, you know, are somewhat of an influence on my career as well. But at the same time, a lot of the guys that love and just tout how much they love Metallica now were the kind of kids that would have made fun of us for liking Metallica back in the day. Am I right or wrong on that?
You are absolutely correct. You hit that one right on the head, Jimmy. Absolutely. You know, it went from everybody, I guess at that time it was Poison and Warrant and
right,
you know,
right.
And I went, actually caught a Poison show, and yeah, now again, hindsight's always 20/20. I don't care who you are, hindsight's always 20/20. But at the time, you know, I know they were using tracks and whatnot, and CC DeVille would come out of his guitar solo, held his guitar over the head and over his head with the drum beat, and was, you know, doing the count, and the guitar kicked in, and I'm like, what the hell is that? So, you know, you can guess everything. And so when I had the opportunity to dive into metal, I did. But you're right. A little bit of shunning came with that territory. But, hey, man, you know, the very first injury that I had was blew my knee out slam dancing at Operation Rock and Roll show. Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Testament.
Wow.
Toy. And, yeah, so, you know, I took a hit from a guy twice my size, probably twice my age, and blew my knee out. One of our club shows a couple of weeks later, about lost my head. Our guitar player, we brought a lead guitarist in. The band you'd asked about, let me circle back because I talk too fast and too much sometimes.
You're good.
Was my buddy Ricky Stewart, my buddy Ronnie Finley. We'd been friends for years, and we put that together. Ronnie had met a guy that we were 16, 17 years old. He met a 28, 30-year-old guy that came in and could just play like nobody's business. And he was into a little, how do I say this? He was into some things that we weren't not only of age to do, but even of age we shouldn't have been doing.
Right.
So he was doing his thing, and he was wigging out a little bit, and he had this big Grim Reaper sword, and he decides he's going to swing it around while he's doing his guitar solo. And here I am on an unlevel stage at a place called Pan Starship. It was a club downtown, a spot that's now part of the Bridgestone Arena's parking lot, actually.
Wow.
Down on a little raggedy, uneven stage, and about broke my neck avoiding getting hit with the sickle because I was in the new phase. I almost got hit with the sickle by the guitar player on the dope, it was a hell of a performance, but he about killed us, and about made me kill myself because I was in that knee brace from my knee injury from the slam dancing at the rock and roll show. It's Operation Rock and Roll, man. It's just one big old circle, brother. One big old circle.
I love it, man. That's awesome because, you know, like I said, I've got such huge ties, and that's what led me to where I eventually met you. Was I was a musician, and then you and I actually met when I was working at the Great Escape out there in West Nashville, and you would come in there and I would see, oh, it's Hot Rod Biggs. I know who Hot Rod Biggs is. I'm going to talk to Hot Rod Biggs. And then Tony Falk, LT Falk, Luke from the Bushwhackers. Then eventually Aaron Camaro came in there and said, hey, you know, you want to come? And I'd done a little work up in Virginia for my mentor Kenny Steele, and told him about it, and he said, you want to come work at Mike Porter's? And then I, you know, got tired of not getting paid and ended up going to work at TJ Sawmill. But that's a whole other story we'll get into in a minute. So
you need to sit here and tell me, where all these people can hear us right now, that you were too talented to work for hot dogs for Mike Porter. I just can't believe it.
I did it, brother. I did. I even got a bag of chips. One time he said, Jimmy, go ahead and take you a bag of chips, honey. You worked hard out there tonight. And I'm like, Mike, come on, man. You're killing me. Anyway.
What'd you do? I have to work twice for that? Shit.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right, Hot Rod, you talked about it a little bit already, but give us like a little look into your start in wrestling and who trained you and all that stuff.
You know, I began, again, we had, we're going back to the music. Billy, you would know him, Jimmy, as Malenko, a.k.a. Billy Manson.
Oh, yeah.
Name is Billy Stewart. His brother Ricky was one of our original band members in thrash. Me and Billy had decided we were just going to play a little show at a skating rink down here for some friends that were going to come through town, and we kind of I had a very large circle of very loyal friends back then. Still do. I don't mean to sound like I don't, but so much so that we were setting up a little show at the skating rink, just do some cover tunes and whatnot, and we were practicing 7 days a week, and we decided, we kind of drifted away from wrestling. It got a little blasé for a couple of years, and we wound up going back to the fairgrounds. PG-13, we're headlining with Tommy Rich and Doug Gilbert. It was the year that Eddie had passed away. We were at the fairgrounds when Doug got the news about Eddie, actually, and that was a pretty intense thing. And it was actually, and I was come to think about it, Doug is now somebody I proudly call my friend. I don't know if I ever told Doug that story. Anyway, first time for everything, right? So I seen Doug jet out the back door, and it trickled through the crowd where we were just up top having an adult beverage or two, and I was like, that's real. That was like everything else was in question, and I was never one of those guys that I never picked apart the show to try to see what the trick was or to see what this might be legitimate and this might not be. I just took it for what it was. To me, that would be like going to see, Fast and the Furious and trying to figure out which one's a stunt driver and which one was Dom.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
That defeats the purpose to me. If I'm going to see the show, I'm going to see the show. And that was like the first, difference that I seen in the emotion. And Billy Jack Haynes had come in and took Doug's spot on the main event, so everybody knew something serious was going on. I didn't realize I had the tie-in that I did at that time. I believe it was February of '95. We come back, so we were going. Our reward for ourselves for practicing for the show, because that's just was what we were doing in life, was to go to the fairgrounds. And once that break happened, I got word within a week or two that Jason followed him in. He had started training with Ben Jordan. And so I started throwing the idea around. I'd always wanted to, as a kid, I was always told, well, you're too small that you're not tough enough to do this, or, somebody hit you with a chair, you're going to go home crying to mama and whatnot. And so it was always in the back of my mind, but I was a little intimidated. I'm not 6'5" and not the gym rat or the bodybuilder or the muscle guy, whatever. I always liked a good fight now, a good fair fight, always up my alley as far back as I can remember. So there was no fear, but there was some intimidation about it. And once we seen the deal with Doug, and then Jason kind of, laid some breadcrumbs out, Hansel and Gretel style. And we seen Moondog Spot at the gimmick table, man. I went down and bought a couple of pictures just to open up a conversation with him. He didn't speak to me. He works the gimmick. He couldn't talk for a few weeks. And that just kind of drove me. I was like, that son of a bitch is going to talk to me. It's kind of my attitude. And God rest his soul. Moondog Spot actually said to me one time, I obviously didn't register at the time, and I didn't realize I had got my feet wet yet, so I couldn't understand what he meant. But he actually made the comment that if he died in the ring, that was perfectly fine with him. Wow. And sure enough, that's what happened. And I don't know if you probably know this, but Cassidy Rock was among the guys in the ring that night. It was in Memphis. We were in Columbia, Tennessee, and we got a phone call. Cell phones were still kind of new, new to everyone. They just become affordable that everyone would start to pick up cell phones. And someone had called one of the fans in Columbia at the Grand Slam, a fan there where we were, had received a phone call from someone in Memphis, and they were actually saying Moondog Spock. So they weren't exactly, they didn't know who the hell they were talking about.
Right.
It turns out that they were there, and we got the news like almost, fairly real time that Larry Latham, Moondog Spot, that Larry had passed away at the Mid-South Coliseum during the match, kind of sat on the bottom turnbuckle and rolled out. And in hindsight being 2020, he said he was okay with that. And I hadn't seen Larry for a couple of 3 years at that point. I had the opportunity to do the Memphis Loop. Most of the guys come through here, and that's what they do. Anybody who watches wrestling or watched wrestling in the territory days knows that all the guys that turned out to be somebody all came through Memphis. They all came through, and that should have been on my radar. It kind of was. My first match with Larry, with Moondog's blessing, was actually in Memphis. It was not at the Mid-South Coliseum, but it was a show in Memphis. My first weekend out, I did Blytheville, Arkansas. I did Dyersburg, Tennessee, Blytheville, Arkansas, and Memphis on a 3-day loop. And that drive was new to me. I was a local boy right here in Nashville, and I was just thinking, damn, do I want to drive 8 hours there? Right. I grew into it, but off the riff, I was just like, damn, there's got to be a better way to do this. And Larry had called up a gentleman by the name of Terry Rice. I don't know if you're aware of Terry, but Terry was a promoter around here. He set up a show at the same skating rink that we were practicing to do the show at. Very popular skating rink. Probably, again, the kids today that don't know any better are going to think of skating rink. What kind of backyard wrestling stuff you got going on? But that's what it was.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to give you the long answer. I haven't really thought about this in a long time.
I love it.
We rolled through, and Moondog made a call to Cherry Rice and told him to book me. And I met Dante, Tommy Heggie. I knew Gary Valiant, and Gary was there. I went to high school with Gary Valiant, actually. He's a couple years ahead of me, but I'd known him for some years. He's from the same neighborhood I am. And all these guys were congregating at this show right here in the neighborhood, like a mile from, I could have walked there. And so I was thinking, now I'm looking at, do I want to go a mile down the street, or do I want to make a 4-hour trip and stay at a hotel?
Right.
And so that was that. And that was Halloween night of 1995. So I had a couple matches in August. I didn't have anything up until the Halloween night show. Dante seen something in me. To this day, I don't know what it was. And you talk about a cheerleader, man. I see he's going to be an upcoming guest soon, and I look forward to that myself. I mean, you were, and I don't mean to sidetrack you here if you have to edit this out, whatever, but did you know that, he was on the Texas Stadium show and Perry Von Erich beat Ric Flair, and he was,
sir.
Jim Pride, he wrestled as Jim Pride. He was Tommy. Yeah, I mean, what a career this guy had. He's sitting back and used to party with the Freebirds and shit. And I'm thinking, kind of minor. But Tommy seen something in me, man. He brought me down to Lewisburg. Columbia wasn't a thing yet. Actually, Columbia wasn't our thing yet. They had broke off from the promoter of Columbia. They'd been running Lewisburg. I found that out after the fact. So I started out my Southern wrestling career, Southern Tennessee spot that was very good to me, by going to Lewisburg. Almost ruined that right out of the gate. So we're talking Halloween night, October 31st, and 6 or 7 weeks later, on December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas, same year, here I am a couple of months into the business. And, as far as I know, the future's so bright, I got to wear shades, brother. And there was a bachelor party for the promoter, Willie Paul Davis.
Willie Paul.
Willie Paul. They had a birthday party for Willie Paul at the Gentleman's Club here in Nashville. I'm trying to be politically correct and verbally respectful. And, a little bit of Crown Royal, etc. later, and a little bit of, hey, I'm being green and stupid and I didn't know any better. And later that night, here I am demonstrating the hip toss to somebody on a hard floor that I had no business doing, and I separated my shoulder, which to this day, right now, all the way from 1995, I twist my elbow and my collarbone pops out because I never got it screwed back in. And I thought that was going to be the worst thing that could have possibly happened to me. And I serve, you know, I'm not a sinless man. None of us are, but I serve a good God, and He used that, you know, used what I thought was my defeat and turned it to a victory. And I'm gonna tell you how He done it. Because I was in Lewisburg and I'd been there for just those few weeks, it was enough for Chris Kern, my Bruise Brother partner, to talk about heat magnets. Man, I'd never experienced anything. To this day, I still haven't experienced anything in my career as Hot Rod Biggs, so to speak, as I did when I was Hot Rod Biggs, one half of the Bruise Brothers, me and Chris Kern, and we later factored in Little Lex Victory, God rest his soul. And man, we just took the area by storm. Because I was in Lewisburg and because I was in that sling, I knew I couldn't wrestle, but I wanted to show that I was still on the team. I still made the trips for the next few weeks. And shortly after New Year's, well, actually, maybe beginning of January, February, Chris Kern was working with Jason Nation. I hate to keep going back to him, but he was a very integral part. They were doing a deal in Lewisburg. Jason had just bought a brand new Firebird 1996 model. He was wrestling against Chris Kern. The car was on the line, and Chris needed to make sure that he walked out the winner. So there I am sitting in my sling. Quentin Charisma is managing Chris. He's got his own thing going on during the deal. And Kern looks at me in that sling, and he says, "Hey, you want to come to the ring with me and hide that spray can in your sling so he could Jason at the end of it?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, brother, count me in. That's what I'm here for." I was just making the trip to show up and support the team. You know, not the Bruise Brothers team, the hey, we're in Lewisburg team. There wasn't no Bruise Brothers. And something just clicked, man. Something you would have to ask Chris Kern what it was, but he seen something. I was just very fortunate, in right place, right time, and he went to Tommy, who was the booker, and asked him if we could do a little thing. He brings the idea to me the next week about the Bruise Brothers. Again, me not being smart to my environment, I almost rejected the Bruise Brothers because as soon as he said, "Okay, we're gonna, you know, put on the bow ties and the shirts and the slacks," and I'm thinking, "Oh God, that's big boss man type shit. I don't want to do that." And, and I tried to talk him out of it. He wasn't having it. And thank God he didn't listen to me. But he insisted, and man, 3 or 4 weeks later, man, we were rolling, and it wasn't long before we were bumped up to the main event. Not because we were excellent workers, not because of politics, not because of any reason other than it was very evident that the people were buying tickets to see our opponents, whomever they were at the time, beat up the Bruise Brothers or get beat up trying. And that was a full education in a very short period of time on the ins and outs of professional wrestling. And only then did I start to smarten up and look at the business for what it was. I never considered it a business. I didn't consider it a money venture. I didn't consider it a stepping stone. It was, this is what I'm doing. This is what's in front of me tonight, and I'm going to take care of this. And I didn't look beyond that. And it could have been detrimental, but thankfully I was surrounded by some good people, and I rode Chris Kern's coattails, and man, the rest is just history. To this day, if I were to go to a show in that area, somebody or somebody's kid, somebody's going to come up and say something to me about the Bruise Brothers. Their grandma watched me. Their mama watched me. Their daddy watched me. They watched me when they were little. I could, not that I wanted to escape it, but I couldn't if I wanted to. We were, for the small audience that we had, 300 or 400 people, we were, which isn't small, especially nowadays, but 300 or 400 people packed into a National Guard Army in Lewisburg, Tennessee, and they just couldn't get enough. I mean, we did the sugar bottle deal with Shane Morton, man, and we went out there and I was drinking the shoot Coke, right? The legitimate Coke bottle, and I dropped one of them. And so I had Quentin bring me another one, so they knew we had more than one. I purposely dropped it so they hear it, see it, and man, we blasted Shane Morton with that damn thing later. Shane and Steve were just a couple of months ahead of me. We all kind of come in at the same time, And so they were the up-and-coming babyface tag team. Chris and I were the up-and-coming heel tag team. And we blasted him with that Coke bottle, man. And Susan, if you hear this, I'm sorry. It is what it is. Man, I was about to eat through the bricks, man, to try to get to us for cutting Shane up. And it was, it was magic, brother. It was magic. You know, Mikey Dunn, all those guys were still in the audience. And no disrespect, they were still in it because I was in the audience before I wasn't either. We all were, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't mean that disrespectfully, but this was a while back. None of those guys had broken in, and I mean, you could ask any of those guys, man. The heat that we had, and everybody, you know, gets yelled at or starts a riot or something and thinks they got the most heat in the world. We didn't have the most heat in the world, but we had the most heat in the circuit, and it was because of the position we were put in. And Chris Kern was just that damn good, and I was smart enough to follow him.
Yeah,
so that's all. Question. You're gonna have to edit out about 45 minutes of that, probably.
No. That's awesome. So, in 98, I'm looking here at your list of stuff. And then, so Music City, you actually work an NWA North American title versus Colorado Kid at the fairgrounds. And then also at around that same time, you're also working a very young James Storm. Talk about some of those times, man. I'd love to hear. I mean, first of all, you're getting to work the fairgrounds there. And then second of all, you're working a very early version of someone that would end up doing some big things. Talk about these times here.
Well, all right. So let me, if you don't mind, I'm gonna take them opposite. You gave them to me though. James Storm was the first person I was ever assigned to, so to speak. James trained with, if I'm not mistaken, he trained with the Mortons to kind of get his feet wet, and he come into Columbia. Eventually led to McMill. Back then we had a pretty good. This was before your time. We had a pretty good schedule, man. We were doing Wednesday nights. We were doing Tennessee City, which is outside of Dixon, Tennessee. We were doing Tennessee City on Wednesday nights. We were doing Shelbyville on Thursdays. We were doing McMinnville on Fridays. We were doing Lewisburg, which rotated to Lewisburg, Petersburg, and Columbia on Saturdays. So we hit each one, every third week. And then Sunday, every other Sunday was Paducah, Kentucky. We had the occasional spot show on a Monday. Tuesdays were off. And so I hit the ground running with 5 to 6 work days, a week. And that obviously expanded on my knowledge. And it wasn't long after, here comes James Storm. And I need to send you a picture, whether you put it on your site, whatever, just so you can see the kid that I was working with compared to the James Storm that the world now knows. Night and day difference. What a great attitude the kid had. Now, I hear, and I'm going to say I hear because I never experienced it, I hear James grew into a little bit of a problem that if he didn't like the way things were rolling, he would buck up and do this. I can say with certainty, he never once done that to me. James and I become very good friends after the fact. And let me reiterate this. This was a time when we were not in the same dressing rooms. I've been wrestling 4 or 5 years before, unless I just happened to catch a ride with one of the guys up or we did something like that. We didn't talk to our opponents. The referee took the gimmick for the end over, and I don't like using the F word, for kidding.
Sure.
But
sure, of course.
The referee would bring the gimmick over. I'm still got a little old school in me. And if the referee, hopefully he was smart enough to communicate it well, and sometimes that led to a fight in the ring. We've been in a couple of shoots in the ring, unfortunately, too. Not that I started any, but it's kind of been the end results along the way. Sometimes it was a miscommunication, or the babyface meant this, and we took it as this, and it just come down. But we were not in the same dressing room. So James and I became friends after we went out there and put our lives in each other's hands for week in and week out for months at a time. And, James and I made wound up making a lot of road trips together. I got to kick it with Mickey James at Storm's wedding. I don't even know where I could start or stop with Storm outside of that. But what a sponge for the professional wrestling industry he was. He wanted to learn it all. He had a good attitude. He didn't mind doing anything, whether I was burning him with fire, whether I was suplexing him off the top rope. I taught him to do a Frankensteiner by taking it from him. which was a new bump for me too. But it was the thing. He and I eventually went into McMinnville. If you're doing your homework, and I know you have, you seen we did some Ronald McDonald House benefits in conjunction with a high school down in McMinnville, Tennessee. A few years in a row, we raised, upwards of $30,000 over 3 years for the Ronald McDonald House because of some shows. We would go in and do a morning show at the school where the kids would pay $2 to get out of class and into the deal. And then we, as crazy as this sounds, they literally tore and I got pictures to prove it. This ain't me making stuff up. Where they took the section out, like the men's clothes, out of the Walmart section because Walmart was sponsored, and we would come in and do a show in the Walmart, literally inside in the men's section. The Walmart, they had to set up, and they asked, and me and Storm would headline that stuff, and then we would come back and do a regular ticket price for the show that night. I mean, what a baby face. Yeah, and I hope he hears this, and if you don't, then I hope the world hears it and tells him about it. What an excellent baby face that kid was right out of the gate. And, everything that he got from my perspective, his attitude that I never experienced aside, because I never seen that. But where I'm sitting, James Storm worked hard for everything that he got, and he deserves all the good that happens to him. And I would take a bullet for that kid. I would lay down in traffic for him right now. I hadn't seen him in several years. But I would lay down in traffic for him right now because of what he did for me way back then, and because I seen the same love that I had for professional wrestling come out with James Storm. Me, Cat Taylor, and Storm tore the circuit up for quite some time. Which leads me to your second person you asked me about. So I had been the Southern Heavyweight Champion for an extended period of time, a little over 18 months consecutive, which what an honor that was. Where would I begin? But to get guys like Tracy Smothers and Jamie Dundee and Stephen Dunn and Paul Diamond and these guys that I everybody with the exception of Paul Diamond, I become friends with after the fact. But at the time, not being in the same dressing room, I didn't get to talk to him before nor after the match. It was hey, tell him I said thank you, and vice versa. And for these guys to come in, they didn't know who I was. I hadn't been on TV at that point, and they come in and did the favor. And who the hell is Hot Rod Biggs? But sure, I'll put him over. And those guys came and done it, and that led to the tie-in, Steve Bryant and Randall Fanning, Steve Bryant was the photographer of the area. Randall Fanning was the videographer, however the hell you say that, videographer. He recorded the shows and made sure the boys had their gimmicks, which I was a student of that. I would work. I was a Marks, right? So I would work for free if that's what I had to do. I rarely had to do that, but I would have worked for free just to be able to record my match, because as soon as we got home, it was put in the tape, and let's see what went right, and let's watch it again, let's see what went wrong, and then let's watch it a third time, and let's see what we maybe should have done so we can try it next time, and became a student of the game. Randall and Steve took over McMinnville, Tennessee. Burt Prentice came to town shortly thereafter, which led to the MCW, the Music City Wrestling, at the fairgrounds, which opened the door for me to wrestle at the fairgrounds for the first time. I had dropped the title after 18 months and 2 weeks. They say wins and losses don't matter. I never kept up with that, but I kept up with that time because it was the first title that I had held in a singles manner. The Bruise Brothers held, I hate to back up, but Chris and I had the tag team titles, and I mentioned that we worked in 6 towns. Chris worked in 5 of those because Chris didn't do Paducah, Kentucky because of the shoot job. Okay. 5 towns, different promoter in each town. A lot of the same crew, but not the same promoter. Nobody was, the Columbia promoter wasn't making money off of Shelbyville, and the Shelbyville guy wasn't making money off Tennessee City. They were independent shows for their own right. And all 5 towns had put their tag team titles on us. Non-cooperating had given us titles. So I'd held tag team titles up to that point, but not a singles title. After 18 months, whatever, I put Storm over for that title. It was time, and he deserved it, and it was just time. And just as luck would have it, again, I thought I'd done something detrimental. 2 weeks later, we're told, hey guys, we're gonna we're going to send y'all to the fairgrounds on Saturday night, you know, and I'm thinking the fairgrounds and what city? Nashville never crossed my mind. They're like, no, you're going to the sports arena in Nashville. And I mean, it was like, how do I equate that without being a sports fan? I guess it would be like going to the Super Bowl, I imagine. I don't know.
Sure,
I don't do but what a great piece of news that was. So here I am now. I'm going to the fairgrounds, but I just gave up my title. And I'm thinking, damn, I just may have missed a run here. But I didn't, because they put me in there with Colorado Kid right out of the gate. And we had a very smooth match. So much so that Mike Rapata, Colorado Kid, that Mike told somebody about it. I know he told Bert, but apparently he told somebody else about it, because he started showing up at the Fayetteville show, and he came to Shelbyville, and he wanted to be in the ring with me, whether it's because I was safe, whether it's because I was light, whatever the reason, whether it's because I didn't mind putting him over. I don't know. I didn't ask those questions. But for whatever reason, he wanted to work with me. We went out there and done it a couple times, and I don't want to be disrespectful. Let me choose my words carefully. I never fell in the favorites list of Mr. Burt Prentice, and that has its own connotations. I guess either you know or you don't know. If you don't know, you're not going to know today. But I was not amongst that group. And
it's a good thing, right? I mean, come on.
It's an excellent thing. Are you kidding me? But I will say this: I never judged those who were, and I was, as time went on, all the way through the inauguration of TNA, and which I'm sure you probably didn't see this online, but I am one of the only local talents that opted out of an opportunity with TNA, and there I got a whole set of reasons for that. But I was invited to. Yeah, I was out there with the rest of them, some bitches, painting the walls for the fairgrounds.
All black.
It's all black. Yes, sir. It went from white to blue to black. Certainly was. When they were bringing it, I was there. I mean, sidebar, but I was standing there talking to Jim Cornette when it's now a famous story, but I was standing there talking to Jim Cornette as Ed Ferrara and Vince Russo walked into the fairgrounds that night, and Jim Cornette goes off on him about the JR skit, the Oklahoma deal, and you can Google that in the stories everywhere. I was standing here talking to Jim Cornette when he stopped talking and turned around to beat Ed Ferrara. He was going to try to. He didn't, but wasn't because they didn't stop him.
Yeah,
he certainly did. He called it, and I'm going to tell you what, everything that I've heard Cornette say about that was almost verbatim.
Wow.
But so that was all the TNA inauguration. Anyway, I say that because I was one of the only guys around here, and I'm not special, I'm not over talented. It was just the way it was. All these guys were clamoring to get in the door for TNA, and I opted out, and that goes back to my deal with Colorado Kid that. Colorado kind of weeded himself out of that. But I was the only local guy, I've said this 9 times, I'm going to finish my sentence. The only local guy that was not in that circle, because I don't know what else to call it. You know what I mean? I wasn't on the favorites list, but I stayed booked. I didn't get kicked. All the other guys got left off the card, or they got timed out or jobbed out or whatever, and they kept me in the mix. I chose not to do the Wednesday night shows, because there was a whole list of extracurricular expectations that I wasn't participating in. And some of those guys, and guys, if you're listening to, I'm not going to name names, and I don't mean any disrespect to you. But I was just raised a different way, perhaps. I don't know. But I was very fortunate. That I stayed in the mix all the way till it just wasn't a thing anymore. Finally, one Saturday night, they said, "Hey, this is the last one," and I was there from the beginning to the end. And it goes back to my very first night with Colorado Kid, and none of that would have happened if not for me dropping the belt to James Storm, which I thought was a mistake. I know I give long-winded answers. I thought it was a mistake, and it turned out just like the separated shoulder, just like the pursuing spot, all the things. I thought I'd done something wrong, and it turned out to be a break that I couldn't have seen coming if it had bright lights on it.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, it leads you to the USWO eventually.
Talk to us about your time tagging with the former guest of the show, Hammerjack, against the Extreme Clown Posse.
old buddy Kroll and Malenko. Talk about that time.
Oh, good guy. Let me preface all of that by saying this. Very few of us would be a name in this area, independent or not, if not for Kroll.
Absolutely.
And most people like him. Some people don't. If I had to pick one person, if everybody was going to drown and we could save one guy, Kroll would get my life raft. I promise you that.
I got to say this real quick. Kroll gave me a chance. You know, I was kind of halfway hiding behind a gimmick of the Sheik, Omar Al-Kazan, and Kroll gave me a chance that I had almost lost my focus on it. And he said, why don't you come back and do a little something? And I did, and I got to give him credit. So I didn't mean to cut you off, but I always wanted to say that. So Kroll definitely gave me a shot when a lot of people wouldn't do it. You know, thank you, Kroll. Hot Rod, I'm sorry to cut you off there, brother.
No apologies necessary, baby. We're just riding down the road talking. So, yeah, I mean, what a phenomenal guy. I mean, there's so much from belts to I mean, everything. Kroll is just I don't want to, write a love letter to him or nothing, although I would, because I love him, man. I was like, talk about taking a bullet, laying down in traffic for somebody. He'd be at the top of my list. So Kroll puts this thing together. He and Tony Falk go back, Eron Hatchett, Norrie, he's gone by both. Them guys were the foundation, and Tony Falk was always kind of the front guy for the USWO, but the driving force behind all of it before the sawmill, before there was a sawmill, there was Excalibur Gym on Friday night and the USWO, and what a phenomenal time that was. If I could go back to 1 year in my entire life and just stay there, it would be from 97 to 99 during that USWO period. It was something else, man. Guys like, Ricochet and Chuck Taylor, and Ricochet, I like Ricochet on a personal level. I don't watch wrestling anymore. I know, I didn't even know he was the Intercontinental Champion until I seen his doll in Tullahoma, Yukon Jack show, and I said that name looks familiar, and it turns out it was Ricochet. Shows you how far I am away from wrestling now. But I didn't like Chuck Taylor then, and I don't like Chuck Taylor now. He's a punk, and I'll smack him today like I smacked him all them years ago, given the opportunity. But that's a whole other story. But the who's who of independent wrestling came through the USWO. What was the kid's name? Petey Wright, a kid named Petey Wright. Lindsay Lohan's first scandal when her new pictures come out was with one of LT's buddies, Petey Wright. This kid took a modeling job. He was a waiter at a restaurant here in Nashville and got invited out to LA because of some people that seen him at the show, and then went to dinner at the restaurant where he worked afterwards. And 6 months later, this kid, last time I seen this kid, he had taken a King Kong Bundy doll or something and painted "It Must Suck to Be You" on him. And this kid's telling me how he's got a homemade Hot Rod Biggs doll by his door so he can tell it by when he goes to work. And 6-7 weeks, however, a little bit after that, however long it was, this kid's, on all the news outlets laid up nude with Lindsay Lohan of all people. I mean, so, some really interesting personalities came through the USWO. And, specifically though, so that, again, I sidetracked myself. Nobody has to do it for me. Hammerjack. Hammerjack's another guy that our friendship, our interactions with each other predate professional wrestling for either of us. So he and I had a history that very few people know about outside of our circle. Hammerjack, his wife, I don't know, do you know Hammerjack's wife?
Oh, yeah, I don't want to, sure do. No, absolutely.
Give her whole privacy. I still remember her, Hammerjack. Don't come look me up for this. I still remember her when she was just the pretty blonde girl that come down from up north with her with her brother. She wasn't Hammerjack's wife yet, so we go back a long way. And what a phenomenal person they both are. But I love Hammerjack, man, and one of the few people that just got it. To have two left feet, Hammerjack, it's true. To have two left feet the way he does, what a worker he became. We didn't know if he was going. We didn't know if he was going to make it coming out the gate. And I'm sure everybody said the same thing about me and all the rest of us. But what a long way he came. But we had some good times, man. Hammerjack and I, we had some good matches against they came in as Disturbing Behavior with Jeff Daniels and Tim Ernesto. Man, I can't say enough about Tim Ernesto either. We'd have to do a 10-part series for that one. 20 part as much as I talk, right? But I mean, and then, you go back to Malenko. I told you about my history there. Malenko had met Kroll in their neighborhood, and I heard, hey, then this guy at the store's got a legitimate winged eagle. It wasn't even known as winged eagle belt like it is now, but it was just the WWF heavyweight title. And Kroll had this, $1,000 belt, whatever, back in, 1994, 1995. And he was taking it to his place of business and showing it to the customers come in, and he and Malenko crossed paths then. And, I mean, man, the rest is history. You just listed a match with me and three of my best friends in life. In the long, looking at it from the long view, probably three of the best friends of my life, and Hammerjack, Kroll, and Malenko. I mean, what great guys. What an honor it was for me to be in there and, to be led through by some, to lead others through on the other thing, and to just go out there and make the people dance, man. That's what's wrong with wrestling today. It's why I can't watch it. It's about spots. It's about flips. It's about dangerous moves. It's about breaking your leg in half so it looks like a rubber band. There's no way in hell anybody would grab a hold of me and do something like that. It just wouldn't happen. But the difference is you see these people, they're working so hard trying to remember what's next that they don't know. And I can say I was in the ring for 27 years, brother, 27 years that I laced my boots. And while I may have the last 2 minutes of the match, I never did I even try, and damn if I would. There's no way I would let somebody come and say, we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to try this, and what about this? And they'd get beat up before we went to the ring, especially if we were in the same dressing room. If we wasn't, I'd have to make a trip around the building because it just wouldn't happen. And that's what I feel is wrong with wrestling is, I referenced going to a movie earlier. Yeah, sure that movie's written, but they have the luxury of multiple takes if something goes wrong.
Sure.
We do not.
Right.
We're kind of our own stuntman. We're our own director. We're our own producer. We didn't have an agent coming back there telling us to do this spot and this spot and this spot and this spot. When I heard through the internet, once the internet became a thing, because obviously I predate the internet, it was crazy to me to try to wrap my head around that, almost like the Metallica thing. How do you wrap your head around an agent telling you what to go out there, what spots to do, whether he was a worker or not? I just can't imagine that. I never experienced that. Tommy had faith in us that say, okay, you just go out there and do a thing and you slip him over somehow, and that was what we done. He gave us the method. But he never said, we'll give him a pile driver and then, you suplex him and duck a clothesline. We didn't hear all that. People can, I try not to use the word fake. I don't use the word finish. I try not to use the word fake because when I was in the ring, it was only as fake as my opponent's aim. It was only as fake as my aim.
Right.
Did I get people? Sure I did. Did I do it on purpose? Very, very, very seldom. A small handful of times that I had to lay something in because it needed to be laid in. Only a handful of times was I, had my eye swollen up or whatnot. And the couple of times I did, I deserved it and I learned something from it. And I thanked that person for swelling my eye up, etc. Because that's what I needed in that moment. And I learned something from it. Well, now these kids just get beat black and blue and risk breaking their neck and don't even know what they're doing it for other than the next flip. And that's crazy to me. Tell me how they pull a match back together when the tackle drop down spot goes awry and the people don't react to it. So you're going to tell me we're talking at 6:15 in the afternoon and the match is going to go on at 8:47 and you're going to tell me how the people are going to respond 2.5 hours in advance?
Exactly.
No, you're not. That shit don't work. And if you are right on the first one, the second one, the third one, what do you do when they don't respond to the fourth one? So I never knew what I was going to do next until I done it. You know, I didn't know, when I was going to, call for a keep alive, or when I was going to, let them shine, or maybe we're going to start with heat. Who knows? It just depends on how they respond. If my spiel goes good and my telling people to shut up and sure go Rod go, if they're responding to that, then let's go. But if they're not, then it's time to change pace, and you have to do it on the fly, and you have to know how to do it on the fly. And that's the magic that is pro wrestling. That's what I alluded to earlier when I said I never watched it to dissect it to see, how do they do this and how do they do that. They just went out there and done it. Right. And I was fortunate to have that perspective, in that I learned by osmosis, by however I learned it. I don't even know how I learned it, but I learned to do it in the moment. That's where the magic happens, and then later when I got to wrestle Bill Dundee, and I got to wrestle Jerry Lawler, and I got to wrestle Dutch Mantell and Stan Lane and all these guys later down the road, they appreciated the fact that I didn't need to come have a 45-minute conversation with them beforehand to not go out there and screw something up. And
exactly. We did have a special request on this episode. One of the good friends of the show, Brian Turner, Booty Call, Brian Turner, Brian Hardison, Brian Turner's VHS Rehab, who's resurrected a lot of the careers of the Middle Tennessee area. And his channel, we love his channel. It's a big part of all my podcasts. He's helped us out. We've helped him out. It's a great relationship with him. He made sure, and I was already going to ask it, but he made sure to get a part where he said, you've got to ask him, especially about the dog collar match with Bart Sawyer, but just your time with Bart Sawyer. What a character, man. What original character,
what a real person that brought his personality into the ring. How about that one?
Yeah, absolutely.
Built like a fire plug and twice as tough. Bart Sawyer, oh my God. That that one took me aback. First, let me start by saying, Brian Turner, I love you, man. You have restored my memories. I lost the story shed many years ago over a silly battle of pride, so to speak. I let a story shed go, not knowing that I mentioned earlier, and I keep alluding back, I would have worked for free to get my matches on tape so I could go home and do my homework and see what I'd done right and wrong. And so I missed from 1995 till 2003, 2004. There was one, maybe two matches that I did not have on 8mm tape, and every one of those were in storage. I had a few survived because I transferred them to VHS and stored them. So I didn't lose every match I ever had, but I lost 70, 80% of them. And because of Brian and his passion and his dedication and his respect for me, whatever makes him put the Hot Rod Big stuff out there, I can't thank him enough. I've told him personally. Now I'm telling the world publicly, Brian, thank you. You have restored my faith in you've restored my faith. You restored my memories. Thank you for what you do. You're a great friend of the show, a great friend to have on your list anyway. I love me some Brian Turner. Brian Turner's VHS Rehab. If you have not checked it out, fans, check it out. You're going to see some real stuff. I'll leave it at that. You're going to see some good stuff on the channel. So, Bart Sawyer, man, what a wildcat he was. So he and I were both vertically challenged, so we matched up as a good pair in there. I was probably in the worst physical condition of my life. When, I was upwards of, I got up to 320, 330 pounds during that era. I've typically been around 220, 230 most of the rest of my career. Some medications had been given to me, and I just kind of threw caution to the wind, some injuries and whatnot. And, man, that put the weight on me, and the fast food and the coffee and everything else I was pouring down my throat certainly did not help matters. But I was in the worst physical condition that I could have. And if you watch any of those tapes, you'll see that I'm, well over 100 pounds over my normal weight. And, it almost killed me to try to keep up with this fire plug. It was like he was like a pack of firecrackers with 3 fuses, man. I've never been in the ring with somebody like that. I mean, he and I'm sure and hopefully the fans know, Bart Sawyer was a protege of Roddy Piper. Bart started in the Portland area. I'm not sure what part of his story brought him to Nashville, but I didn't recognize Bart. I was not familiar with Bart Sawyer. Many of the boys around me were. They were glad to see him. They were, some of them, for lack of a better term, were marking out, like Hulk Hogan had walked into the promotion.
Sure.
And a few weeks down the road, I found out why they reacted like that. What an excellent worker he was. What a stiff son of a bitch. I had not taken beatings like I took from Bart Sawyer ever up to that point. And it wasn't even, it wasn't like him being facetious or being, unprofessional. That's just the way he worked. And I mean, if he gave you 4 punches, you felt 6 of them, I promise. I didn't get those numbers transposed. I'll admit that. He threw 4 punches, you felt 6 of them. It was that bad. So the dog collar match, he wants to do here I am, I'm Hot Rod Biggs, and he's Roddy Piper's protege. Hey, how about we, let's do the angles, man. Let's, what do you say, Hot Rod? Hey, brother, whatever you want to do. One of the dumbest things I ever said. So leading up to the dog collar match, we started off, I'll get through this as quickly as possible. We did the coconut deal, the Jimmy Snuck of the coconut deal. So here I am. I'm a West Nashville boy. What the hell am I going to do with a coconut? I'll get a coconut. It's a topping at Baskin Robbins, right? I go to the store and buy the coconut. Well, I never felt how hard a coconut was in my life. Jesus Christ, was that a mistake? So I buy these coconuts. I playing with the first one and trying to figure out how hard it's got to be hit to, let the milk come on, to emulate what I'd seen on television so many years earlier. How did they do it? How did he make that coconut explode on Snuck's head? Because I knew it was going to be my turn to, do that. And, so I finally figured out, as best I could, thought I did anyhow. And, man, I had 3 coconuts. I left 2 in my bag in the back, 1 gimmick, 1 not, and took 1 to the ring. And there's Athena. We're getting to the dog collar, I swear. Athena and I are at Fairgrounds. I've had a pretty good run because of my position. I mentioned earlier with Burt Prentice that he always kept me in the running. If I wasn't main event or semi-main event, I was the match right before it, which the first match is just as important, if not more important, than the last match. And your position doesn't mean anything except it means something in the fans' eyes, So they see me as a bigger star than I would have otherwise been seen, if not for my position on that card. And so I'm, feel I've got a load to carry. I got a job to do, and I already know that this fire plug's coming in, and he's throwing live rounds, and there's no way around that. And now he's going to throw a live round with a coconut, and I know that's coming. So I got this gimmick coconut. Well, as my luck would have it, that coconut gets kicked off of the damn ring, and it breaks. It hits pretty hard. It actually worked out from the fans' perspective. It actually worked out pretty good because they seen it, and it didn't break as soon as it hit the ground. It took a pretty severe fall for it to break. So what do we do now? That's the go home deal, right? So I make my way. We fight back, and we go get one of the other coconuts. Well, as luck would have it again, I pick up the one that's still in the plastic, and I didn't have time to sort through and get it when we're, filming, and that footage is out there somewhere. I've seen it. I know it's there. I haven't seen it in a long time, but it's there. I hope it surfaces. It comes time to do the deal, and so I know he just took the plastic off this coconut, that it just took a 10-foot fall in the concrete off the top of the ring post to crack the one that had been gimmicked. And this one's coming straight out the plastic. And so I know it's going to be a tough night. And so I try to halfway bump at mid-swing, kind of brace myself as best I can to be whacked in the head with a coconut, which, let me add, right this moment as we speak, I have 2 fingers on the knot that is permanently in my skull from the coconut. I have a permanent knot. I swear to God. Next time you see me, pat me on the head. You'll feel it. I have a knot to this day with the coconut. He swings the coconut. Well, he gets me good. And he don't get me good enough for Bart Sawyer because this is Bart Sawyer. That son of a bitch grabs me by, he has me in the Hot Rod shirt right out the gate. Over my must suck to be you deal, I got the Hot Rod shirt, which I always wanted a Hot Rod shirt because I went to WrestleMania 1 closed circuit at the Municipal Auditorium, March 31st, 1985. I'll never forget that date. I'll remember it beyond my birthday. March 31st, 1985, they were sold out of Roddy Piper shirts. When we got there, I never had a Roddy Piper shirt, never had the opportunity to buy one, and then I get one, but man, what a price I had to pay for it. And he grabs me by that shirt. I try to bump, and he catches me on my way down. I'm kind of in the turnbuckles. He I don't know if he done it on purpose or he thought I don't know. I didn't get to ask him because I was knocked out. So he grabs me by the shirt, pulls me back up, and waylays me a second time, and I just knew I was busted open because I felt all this stuff running down my face. Well, after I was woken up, 45 seconds later, it was the coconut milk. He legitimately smashed that damn coconut, which ironically worked out because hey, we're going to do the deal like they done. And by God, Bart Sawyer made sure it happened. He knocked me out cold with that coconut. So now that I got that long story out of the way, now we're coming for the dog collar match. Well, we did a sleeper thing, and I bloodied him up. Good footage. That's on Brian's channel, actually. Christmas night, we did the deal. Then we did the dog collar match. The dog collar match was the night of Jerry Lawler and David Flair. And yes, I got fired before the main event come along. I didn't even get to see the match. So because of this dog collar match, oh my God. So here we are, the biggest house I'd ever seen. Well, I ain't gonna say ever seen. It's the biggest house I'd seen since the late 80s when the Fabulous Ones and the Sheep Herders sold out the fairgrounds.
Yeah.
The television show that morning, David Flair, and you talk about a kid who needs to learn a wrist lock from a wristwatch. Jesus Christ, he's Ric Flair's son and he can't wrestle. What the hell is that? Hold up, story. But, so David's in town. We do a Friday night show, and I get to work with David. Found out he can't work. I didn't get to see him work with Lawler because I got fired, which I'm getting to. And so me and Bart are out there. The television show that Saturday morning, Athena and I had a spot. I haven't seen it in years. Brian, if you hear this, find me that interview. I'd love to see it. And not only my interview, but I'd love to see what a mark moment it was for Hot Rod Biggs, because I got to watch my interview with Athena, which was awesome in its own right, because here I am with the pretty lady on the big TV show going into the big card at the big arena. It was Super Bowl time again. And to top the icing on the cake is that the interview fades out. I'm going to be a mark here. The interview fades out from Athena and Hot Rod Biggs, and up comes Ric Flair talking about he just might have to pay Jerry Lawler a visit to protect his son at the Nashville Fairgrounds. And that was followed by Jerry Lawler's interview with Ric Flair on the gimmick. And I mean, what a moment that was. So, I mean, to say that I was a little bit nervous, to say I was excited, to say I was worried about getting the hell beat out of me because we have a legitimate, 20-pound dog collar that's fixing to be strapped to us. And I know what he done trying to emulate the Jimmy Snuka deal. Is he going to try and rip my ear off like Ray Valentine did? You never know with Bart Sawyer. So there was a lot of nerves going into that. And I will say this, every single movement we made, I don't give a damn if I was trying to powder and if I was shooting him into the ropes. That chain, I don't know if it was longer than the other one. I didn't look at the logistics, but every time we made a movement, he or I moved, that chain was like a whip, and it was going bam, and it was doing a wave, and smacking you in the face and getting you in the eye, hitting you in the nuts and popping you in the knee, and that chain beat me to death. I had just been put on pain medication for a very serious back injury. I shouldn't have even been in the ring. I was so beat up the next day. I was so beat up that my medication was at the bottom of the stairs. I didn't even get up to go get the pain pills. I was in so much pain. It was bad. It was bad. That's the worst I'd ever, to not be injured, to just be sore from a match. Nothing compares to that dog collar match. The most sadistic, most brutal match I was ever in, and what I call a career, was that dog collar match. So the reason I was fired, and the reason that it is now the story it is amongst those who were there, is that Bart Sawyer says, throw the sign at me. I started carrying the stop sign before ECW featured it, before Tommy Dreamer, grabbed the Marks fan with the sign and ripped it off on the TV, and now everybody carries a stop sign. Somebody brought me a stop sign, and what the Bruise Brothers had the Jim Cornette deal. We had the tennis racket. That was something that Chris Kern had with the former tag team. I didn't like the idea of it, just like I didn't like the idea of the suit that mimicked the Big Boss Man. But man, was I wrong again, because that tennis racket sounded like a shotgun, and we got a lot of heat off of it. On an equal playing field, that stop sign, it was flat, it was smooth. The harder you threw it, the louder it was, and the harder you threw it, the easier it was to take in most cases. So it was a win-win when you hit somebody really hard with it. As long as you get them with the edge, it's still getting hit with a stop sign. It's not a day at the beach, but it's better than it sometimes looks or sounded. And so, as always, he told me to grab a sign. I grabbed the sign, baby. I give a thing to the Iggy, and she slid that baby in. And when I turned around, I felt the chain hit me in the back. So I knew he moved, but I didn't know where he moved to. And when I turned around, he is sitting his ass is on the top turnbuckle. His feet are on the second rope. And so he's just kind of sitting up in the corner, still chained to me. And so I took 2 steps and slung that stop sign at him, flat, hard as I could throw it. What does Bart Sawyer do? He's Bart Sawyer. He's going to do exactly the opposite of what you think he's going to do. He puts his head down and sails backwards. When he does, Jimmy, he backdrops that sign about 12 feet above the top rope. So you're talking 20 foot. I'm not exaggerating, man. 20 foot probably, that this stop sign is falling in the air. You want to guess where it lands? They got me fired and sent home before the David Flair and Jared Lawler. It lands in the front row.
Oh, man.
Where on the front row, Hot Rod? I'm going to tell you where it lands: on a little girl and 2 old women.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, my. Of course.
I swear, it's a wonder it didn't cut their legs off. The girl had on she couldn't have been 10 years old, maybe. I don't know. I was a heel. We weren't in the same dressing room. I didn't get to follow up. Well, actually, I didn't get to even change clothes. I got thrown out of the building.
Oh, man.
Our apprentice comes by and says, "You get the hell out of my ring now." And the first time he'd ever said anything derogatory to you. And I'm like, I didn't do it. I didn't get to argue my point, but that was my first thought. And Athena's over there, she just looks horrified. I'm like, oh my God. And, I didn't know if they were hurt. I didn't know what happened. Turns out it has slashed the girl's baggy pants and just left a little bruise. They just kind of glanced them. So it didn't hit them with the impact I thought it did. Oh my God. And then to top all that off, as if it could get any worse from my position, who are the guest commentators for the big television taping that's going on? Jim Cornette and Scott Hudson are there live to do the deal. And all I hear to this day is Jim Cornette when I went back to watch it, I hear Jim Cornette saying, "I just scooped that old lady up. She was ready to go anyway."
Oh my God.
We all thought it killed these people, just in that moment, I'm just waiting on Bart to go down and we can move on to whatever was next. Like I said, I never knew what I was going to do next till I done it. So I don't know what was coming after that, but it wasn't leaving the ring because the stop sign hit somebody in the front row. That was not the plan. And it was crazy. It was crazy. We were welcomed back into the good graces. Bart Sawyer showed up a couple of weeks later with flowers for the old lady and the gift certificate and whatnot. He come out of pocket and took care of that. It was actually coming just to legitimately apologize to him. I did get to talk to Bart a day or two after the match because it took me that long to get off the couch once I got my big ass on. I wasn't moving. It was terrible. The worst beating I'd ever had. The scariest moment I ever had, which says a lot because I've been in some pretty in particular situations over the years. But wow, what a culmination of a feud, and what a way. And then I missed $100 payoff because I didn't get it on top of everything else. I wasn't even going to argue the point. I never come in for the money anyway. I made more money at home than I was in there anyway. I was 15 minutes from home. Thank God I didn't have a 4-hour road trip or a 10-hour drive or something afterwards. But yeah, it was as bad as it could be without being bad, I guess.
Right.
What a night.
Man, that is definitely what a night. That's a legendary story, and I can just envision every bit of that, honestly, Hot Rod.
Hey everyone, this is Shane from Insane Shane's World. I release wrestling figures of enhancement talent, mid-card wrestlers, and wrestlers that you never thought would have a figure available. So if you are interested in adding a really cool and rare figure to your collection, then don't hesitate to contact me at shamtheman73@gmail.com. That's SHAMtheman73@gmail.com. You can also join my Facebook group. Just search Insane Shane's World.
If you're a fan of rock and music, I'd really appreciate it if you took a moment to check out my podcast. It's called the Decibel Geek Podcast. We've been doing it for about 10 years now. We talk about Kiss. We talk about Ozzy. We talk about Motley Crue and Guns N' Roses and Metallica. We talk about all the legends from the 60s and on, up to brand new bands that you should be hearing about today that you're not going to hear on the radio. It's Decibel Geek. Wherever you find your podcasts, you'll find us there. If you love rock and roll, I can almost guarantee you're going to love my show.
Another thing I got to talk about is you're tagging with guys and you're getting to work with some great guys. One of the things that you did, you ended up tagging in a good amount of time with him was Larry Valentine, and you got to work against our buddy Jeff Daniels and Mr. Tim Ernesto in Disturbing Behavior. I'd love to hear about some of the feuds and fights with them.
Well, I'm going to start this one off then since you asked. This story just came to mind, actually. My first interaction with Tim Ernesto was Springfield, Tennessee. It was Hammerjack and I. Larry, I'm getting to you, brother. I love you. We're coming. Hammerjack and I had a match with Tim Ernesto and Jeff Daniels. They had just returned from Florida as the NWA tag team champions. This was just before TNA. I've heard through the grapevine that they may have been slated for a spot there or something is the reason they had the belts. Whatever the reason they come back with the belts, which was a fairly big deal, but belts are what they are. But to have those particular belts in that political environment that it was, and we're talking 1998, 1999, maybe 2000, somewhere around there, probably 2000. I guess. So right around the turn of the century, that's still a pretty big feather in the cap there to come to town with the NWA tag team titles as Jeff and Tim did, and deservedly so. What great guys they are. Learned a lot from them. I had a lot of good times in and out of the ring with both those gentlemen. But my introduction to Timmy, or should I say Timmy's introduction to me, was oh man, I hate even saying this out loud. So we're fighting outside the ring, and I go to slam Timmy's head into the post, and I don't know if I was excited. I hadn't hurt many people in their careers, but man, we spun Timmy's brain around, and he ate that pole so bad that this was a Friday night in Springfield. We show up at Columbia the next night, and Jeff Daniels comes up to me, the one place that we were in the same dressing room after a few years. Shane Morton had redesigned the dressing room in his tenure to put a curtain up so we could go, so we didn't have to depend on the referees to go from those dressing rooms and whatnot. I hope I'm not losing the fans out there, but Jimmy, you know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
And so it was one of the first times that I actually got to talk to someone in the back. And the kids, let me back up a second. I seen Ernesto, sitting with the guys that I viewed as the veterans, which, Tommy Heggie and Dante, Tony Falk and Ricky Reynolds, and just I could go on and on, Barney Brown and all those guys were congregated around Tim. I was unaware at the time. I didn't I obviously know who Tom Ernesto was, and then Tom Jr. and what a great guy Tom Jr. is. Got to do headline the Mid-South Coliseum and run good programs with Lawler back at the end of the 80s, early 90s, and what a cap there. But I didn't realize this was the same guy. I look over and I see some guy that looks like Frank Zappa, and I'm like, What the hell is that? Why does he got a belt? And it didn't take a couple minutes in the ring with him to understand why he had that belt around his waist. So what a Tim Ernesto was. But here I am. Jeff Daniels comes up. I don't mean to sidetrack myself. And he says, "Hey, all right, in that typical Jeff Daniels voice, "Hey, Hot Rod, go ask Timmy where he's at." I said, "What do you mean we're asking where he's at? He's right there." I said, "Yeah, but he don't know that." I was like, "What do you mean he don't know that?" I mean, he was concussed for like, Jeff could tell you a better timeline, but my understanding was for quite a few days. I don't even think he was 100% a week later when we returned to Columbia a week after that. So that was my introduction to Timmy Ernesto, was knocking him out with a ring post, face full of ring posts. Hot Rod Biggs, which was absolutely unintentional, but we just because some folks carry tennis rackets does not mean we were playing tennis. So, Larry Valentine, Chris Champion put Larry Valentine and I together. I had a little history with Larry Valentine in that we, as the Bruise Brothers, Chris Kern and I, were working with Ashley Hudson, the Australian heartthrob, and Larry Valentine in Petersburg, Tennessee one night. Things got a little out of hand between Chris and Larry Valentine, and as far as I know, there's still some animosity there. I don't think they ever kissed and made up. Got out of hand there. I never had a problem with Larry. Just still don't. I needed a little bit of. I had to call in some favors. Not a couple of years ago or something, and Larry was one of the guys I called. Matter of fact, Jimmy, thank you because you helped me out with that situation too. Now that I think about it, thank you for that. It was a trying time in the personal life of Hot Rod Biggs, but that's a whole different thing. But Larry was one of the guys that's the kind of relationship we had, and he didn't hesitate to he didn't have the Cash App gimmicks and all the stuff, and he actually had to get in his vehicle, and which I really told him not to worry about it after I learned he had to do all that, and he wasn't taking no for an answer, and he went 10 times out of his way to do something that he didn't have to do in the first place. Larry, I'll always love you for that, and I loved you long before it. Chris Champion put us together in Spring Hill, Tennessee, at a little spot show. Mike Porter was running for hot dogs and chips. I guess if you're Jimmy Street, it's hot dogs and chips. I wasn't ever that. Kudos to you, Jimmy. But so let me rephrase. We worked for hot dogs and leave the chips out. And Chris put us there, and Larry was, Larry had told me, I don't want to make him sound like a mark because he's certainly not a mark. Did you know one of his very first matches was a WCW match with a young Steve Austin?
That's awesome. No,
I don't know. Brian, there's your homework assignment, Mr. Turner. Find Steve Austin in WCW versus Larry Valentine.
There you
go. So Larry came in with because of his look, Larry was a police officer once upon a time. I hope I don't get any heat for saying that. He's a school teacher now, a very dedicated man to all his professions he's in. But he was a police officer. He was a bodybuilder. I don't know what the hell you call those little bikini guys with the big ass muscles, but Larry was one of them, and rightfully so, man. So here's the guy. You talk about opposite personalities. Here he is going to the gym and shit. I don't even know anybody named Jim. But man, Chris Champion put us together, and Larry had come up to me and kind of put over the fact that I had this long introduction spiel. Rhyme this, rhyme that, and to hell with you people, and blah, blah, blah. And I did the same thing. Once I started doing that a couple years into my career, it got to where, either the people would raise hell, tell me to shut up, or it got to where they would say it along with me. I never failed to get over by doing what I was doing. I'm one of the few people that still use the same theme song today that I used in 1997. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? And so I was fortunate. And so Larry had approached me at that point after, Chris Champion asked if he could put us together. I got a great story about Chris Champion in the night TNA debuted in Nashville, and Chris had his stroke that disabled him too, and talk about that down the road somewhere. But Chris, just shortly before all that, Chris put us together. Larry come up and put me over for the spiel, and asked what I thought about him coming up, something similar. So he would do his introduction, and then I would do my introduction, and then there we were, the tag team. And started for a little, 100 people a week or something, a little small spot show that Mike Porter. I had never experienced it's commonplace now, but I had never experienced if you work for this guy, you can't work for me.
Oh, totally. Absolutely. Yeah.
Until Mike Porter and Burt Prentice both came to Nashville, and they were together first. So you know what I'm talking about. They were together at first, and they wasn't. And if you worked in this town, he couldn't work for this town. And I just said, to hell with y'all. I got a third option. I don't know about everybody else. And once I threw that down, they loosened those reins on me, and I was again one of the few people that the Burt Prentice thing and not being in his personal circle, he sure treated me like he was on the car anyway. And I got to do both shows, and I was fortunate for that. Just because it opened the doors of the people I could work with and help, the people who could work with me and could help me out, which led to, Burt Prentice is the one who put me in the ring with Lawler and Dundee and Reno Riggins put me in the ring with Dutch Mantel. Burt put me in there with Buddy Landell. And, I have stories about all those guys today because Burt Prentice looked favorably upon me because of the talent that he said I had. I'm not saying I was talented, but he said I was talented. So because of that, I got to get some good spots. Well, Larry appreciated. Larry recognized that. I didn't do anything for it, but Larry recognized that, and what an awesome tag team partner he was. It was totally opposite of what I'd experienced with Chris Kern. It was different than what Hammerjack and I had, or Devon Day, who's another great talent. I know you mentioned Devon Day and Timmy Ernesto and just the Victory Twins. I mean, I could go on and on about great people I got to work with. Larry was right up there at the top of them. What a phenomenal athlete he was, man. Their TNA shot got blown because of a knucklehead partner he was with. So, man, I don't want to get any heat. I love John Caesar. If you hear this, I love you, but man, that was not the right response to give to the guy coming to give you an opportunity in professional wrestling. You don't go to somebody that's going to give you $1 million and say, well, what is about $1.5 million? You just don't do that. Right. He did. It wasn't about money. I just going to. They were going to do Larry had an idea for some kind of double team spot, and John's counter idea to that was, well, why don't I just get them in a headlock and put my knuckle on the temple until they pass out, like a sleeper hold or something goofy like that, and they were done with them. They just, in that one sentence, man, their opportunity was just gone. Everybody else is clamoring for a spot, and John Caesar got them sent out the door immediately. I think Larry ended up doing a singles match either that night or the next week, and that was kind of that. But it's just so you can light your flame up, but it can be blown out really quickly. But so Larry had experienced that kind of stuff, and he was glad to have me as a partner, and I was equally glad to have him as a partner. He had a beautiful valet with him. I'll leave that at that, which just added to the package and was right up my alley because, it wasn't long before that when the Hot Rod Biggs 1998 Dream Team, as they become known, before Athena, we had Miss Ecstasy, and we had, Misty Heat was Miss Alexis, and then Athena come in, and I mean, I was always fortunate to have an array of beautiful women willing to come to the ring with me and do whatever was necessary. None more a trooper than the goddess Athena. Make no mistake about it. She and I have had many personal differences. We live different lifestyles. I don't agree with her. She never agreed with mine, but man, we made some magic happen in the ring and made some good memories both for ourselves and for the fans. And neither of us would probably be where we are in life if not for right now, if not for the other one during that time period. So I don't want to take anything away from Athena, but Larry added to the package with this lovely lady. He had a company and he wanted to come out, and it was flattering for him to want to emulate something that I had done. I'd not experienced that up to that point. And so he comes up with this really cool spiel about, rhyming his stuff coming in, and it worked really well as a package. And it wasn't long before the houses come up, and I can't say we were directly responsible for that, but it wasn't very long before it went from 50 and 100 people that we were up to 2 and 250, which is a pretty significant increase for a out-of-the-way place like Spring Hill was before the new top plant was out there, especially, and just what a great guy, man. I could talk all day about Larry Valentine. What a great talent. What a great partner. What a good friend. and what a good man he is.
Absolutely.
All right, Hot Rod, you've mentioned several of these gentlemen, and I just want to get an idea from you. Like, who was your favorite promotion to work for? You mentioned Burt Prentice and Tony Falk, Mike Porter, T.J. Weatherby. Who was your favorite to work for?
Oh man, that's like asking. I don't have any children, but ain't that kind of like picking a favorite child? They all had their own unique qualities, man. If I had to pick just one out of the gate, I mean, Kroll's gonna lead that charge regardless.
Sure.
Kroll put me in more opportunistic positions than anybody on the scale we were at. Burt Prentice brought me to the fairgrounds. Kroll's put me there too. I'm not taking nothing I'm about to say afterwards takes anything away from Kroll being my number one. I will say that.
Sure.
Burt Prentice put me in the ring with guys that I dreamed about as a 12 or 14-year-old kid, that one day, if I play my cards right, maybe I'll get to wrestle Jerry Lawler. Maybe
Sure.
I'll get to wrestle Bill Dundee. And, it as luck would have it, I got to do semi-main event. I was semi-main event at the fairgrounds Christmas night in 1998 with Bill Dundee. I was semi-main event Christmas week 1999 with Jerry the King Lawler. Reno Riggins put me in there Christmas night of 2000. Christmas night. I could be off a year. It was 3 Christmases in a row. I got to semi-main and main event at the fairgrounds with Jerry Lawler, Bill Dundee, and Dutch Mantell, respectively. 3 Christmases in a row, man. I mean, I damn sure thought my time on earth was up then. I just, I lived past 28. I didn't think I was going to. Now I've wrestled Lawler and Dutch Mantell and Bill Dundee at the fairgrounds, and, got to go over in one of the 3 of them, which was almost unheard of, considering my level and theirs. And if I'd have died right then, just like Moondog said, if I'd have died right then, I'd have been okay with it, and I'd have just been another story. But here I am, I lived to tell about it, and I thank Burt Prentice for that. God rest his soul. Burt was good to me, and not for the typical reasons that many people will say that Burt Prentice was good to them in wrestling. He had I don't want to say he had a respect for me. He had an appreciation of what I brought to the table. And I had an appreciation for what he brought to the table. And I told one person one time that I wouldn't do something the way they wanted to do it. And Burt supported me on that. Surprisingly, I really thought I was putting a death nail in the coffin, but this guy wanted to I was wrestling this guy on the 3rd match. They were trying to groom him. Jeremy Borash and Mortimer Plumtree and Bob Ryder and Jerry Jarrett were there to watch him work, to see if they could position him on the we were doing Saturday nights, which how crazy is this? They're giving away free tickets by the thousands. I think they gave away like 10,000 tickets a week, knowing they couldn't hold but 2,000 with their
Sure.
setup for TNA. So they were giving all these ridiculous amounts of free tickets out, and you get to see the Road Warriors and Kurt Angle.
Oh yeah.
So, or you can pay $10 or $12 on a Saturday night and come see Hot Rod Biggs, and come on now, who would you buy a ticket to see, right?
Sure.
So
right.
the deck was stacked against us anyway. So they're keeping the Saturday nights alive. They're paying Burt like it's a bought show, because I guess for tax purposes it was. So Burt didn't care if we didn't draw but 100 people at the fairgrounds, which was sad, but that's a whole other story. But there we were in the mix there. Here's this foursome. You talk about a Mount Rushmore. Turned in hindsight, it kind of was. I didn't know who Mortimer Plumtree was at the time. I learned who Jeremy Borash and Bob Ryder was as time went by. And of course, I knew Jerry Jarrett, and they're watching me, not for me to get an opportunity, because I'd already bowed out and gracefully told them thank you and declined my opportunity, and that's a whole other story. But they're there to watch Humongous. The kid's name was Ryan. He was Hulk Hogan was high on this kid from whatever, and Hulk Hogan told him to go here and go there, and so he come in under the recommendation of Hulk Hogan, which is about as big as names get from my perspective.
Yep. Amen.
And so now I got a guy that Hulk Hogan sent to this area to polish up or whatever the hell he's going to do. Now I'm still in the neighborhood. I'm not the 320 I was a few months earlier with the dog collar match in Bart Sawyer. That time is come and gone, but I'm not far from it. Now, I'm still probably 280 pounds, maybe at this point. And we're on third or something like that. We're on early in the card, and the kid is going to turn heel at the end of the night. Yeah. And then he's going to turn heel on a kid that weighs 175 pounds. Well, the 175-pound kid is going to take this big, I guess, like a jackhammer type deal, like Goldberg ended up doing. Although it wasn't, nobody knew what the hell a jackhammer was during his time, but apparently this kid did. So his idea is that, well, hey, you're only 280 there, Hot Rod. Why don't I just try it on you in the third match? And if it goes well, I'll try it on this 170-pound kid in the main event. And I said, no, man, we ain't going to do that. To hell with you. And there's Jamie Dundee saying, oh, Hot Rod, you're the veteran, man. Don't take that some bitch's move. Don't take that some bitch's. I love you, Jamie. God, you talk about some stories, Jamie Dundee. But Jamie's coming out to me. And to me, this is Bill Dundee's son, and this is the guy that was main eventing the show when I was buying tickets to talk to Spot to ask him to train me. And before I spent time in the tobacco barn on Moondog Spot's property and got 45 pounds sweated out of me, in 3 months of training before I got to lace up any boots. And now I'm going to go against that. Hell no, I'm not going to go against that. I'm listening to Jamie Dundee. Jamie's the veteran in my eyes. And when he validated my refusal to take this stupid move for the stupid reason the stupid kid wanted to give it to me, I just wasn't doing it. And then now I done said my words, and I wasn't backing down on my principle, because that I'd have been the weak link in the deal. And now the other guys are looking at me like, well, Jerry Jarrett wants him to do this and that. I said, I don't give a damn what Jerry Jarrett wants. Tell him to come in there and take it. And I I did. I'm not going to, I ain't going to bullshit you. I did not know Jerry Jarrett was on the other side of the door when I said that. But turns out that Jerry Jarrett approached me about 3 or 4 months later. Reno Riggins brought Jerry into the fold of a fairgrounds event he had going on. And we got the spiel and the contract deal and, the offer for a contract and the dummy contract that this is what it'll read like. And so there was a big meeting with all the boys. And after the fact, they're going to shoot wrestling in high definition for the first time, early 2000s, right? And so Jerry Jarrett comes up to me after the fact and he says, hey, you said something a little while back, and I didn't get a chance to tell you thank you. And I said, I didn't know what the hell he's talking about, right? And I found out months down the road. Nobody told me that. And he said that kid was gonna try that suplex move on you, and you told him no. He said, good call, kid. And here's Jerry Jarrett that I grew up watching. As a wrestler, as a promoter, as Jeff Jarrett's dad. Jeff Jarrett, what a POS he is. I got a good $10 million rejection story on him I can tell real quick in a moment too. But so here's Jerry Jarrett that I've looked up to for as long as I've been around wrestling. Here's the man that I now know is responsible for all the memories I've had wrestling, and he's telling me I made the right decision and calling him an idiot, or not idiot, but telling him, well, I'll tell him to come take it. That's what I said to him. And he approached me and he told me that was a good decision, which, like most of my decisions, they don't seem like a good decision at the moment. But in hindsight, they usually work out. They've always worked out in my favor for the most part. And God bless his soul again. I think there's more of us gone than around nowadays. Getting old. But,
sad.
Yeah, what an honor it was for that. I don't know how the hell I got there from the Mary Valentine thing, but since I'm off track anyway, let me give you a story that nobody knows. Nobody outside of my personal circle knows. So we're at James Storm's wedding. I tell you, I swear I first encountered Mickey James. I'd worked a show or two with her, but I didn't know her on a personal level. And, it was an open bar after the wedding. And, so me and Mickey's hanging out, and, Matt Morgan's there, and Jeff Jarrett and Karen had just their whole deal. They had just got together or become public or whatever they had going on. And seeing 10-foot tall Matt Morgan get out of a car built for like a midget circus or something, that was a whole different sight. That was crazy. That big old bastard getting out of a little bitty car was funny. But so we're at the in my personal life, I was working for I had previously worked for an insurance company, did underwriting and accounting and whatnot, and do taxes. There was a lot of stuff people would never think Hot Rod Biggs would be doing. And Miss Jackie Adair, who is the owner of Direct Insurance. I'm sure, Jimmy, you've heard of Direct. I don't know, Jared.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Miss Jackie Adair. Well, before they were Direct Insurance, they were Harrison Brothers Insurance. Harrison Brothers Insurance. Well, that was her. She was married to Steve Harrison. They were co-owners of the company. He, his brother, and Miss Jackie were equal owners of this auto insurance company. They had a pretty big footprint in the South. Many millions of dollars on the line. Well, it was a small office for what it was. My cousin had gone to work for him straight out of high school, and she was upper management for him. I come in, they were, appreciating my work. I was appreciated being there. And Miss Jackie found out I wrestled, and, we kind of bonded over that. And it got to where on Monday mornings when it come time to go to work, because I had a little bit of leeway of coming in late if I was leaving the town late tonight because we were still doing the five. I was fortunate. I worked 5-6 nights a week for the first 10 years I was in wrestling. So I was very fortunate in that. Not every single week, but most weeks, and even on the not 5 to 6 nights a week, that was 3 or 4. So I got to work fairly consistently right out of the gate. And Miss Jackie would be at my desk waiting on me on Monday morning. She wanted to hear what my weekend story. She wanted to hear who I wrestled and was there a fight in the crowd and just stuff that fans would ask a wrestler. And I was more than happy to oblige the owner of a multi-million-dollar company with a story, especially when she writes my paycheck, right? So here we are at James Storm's wedding, and it was real quick caveat. Miss Jackie began Direct Insurance when her and Mr. Harrison got a divorce. Part of her divorce settlement was the existing business. So she took all the existing Harrison Brothers business and started Direct Insurance, and then she had to do new business sales from there. Steve had to do new business sales from the get-go and rebuild his company. So now you have Acceptance Insurance, which used to be, you probably heard of Acceptance Insurance, which used to be Harrison Brothers. Now you have Direct Insurance, which was Harrison Brothers. And I'm friends with both of them. They're divorced, but they're both my friends. Right. Jeff Jarrett was at James Storm's wedding. We're shooting Crown Royal and drinking, margaritas and whatever the bartender pours next. And they start talking about funding TNA. We're going to need a new sponsor. This was either right during or possibly right before, because I haven't put any thought into it. So not sure on the timeline, but Dixie Carter had not been approached about becoming an investor into TNA at this point. They just had a follow with somebody in front of them. So I'm getting to the end here. Long story short, Jeff Jarrett he's talking about sponsors to Matt or whoever the hell else he's talking to. I wasn't paying him that much attention. And I heard him say Direct Insurance. And then I heard him say, well, he's been trying to get a meeting and he can't get a meeting. I said, damn, Jeff, I said, I can get you a meeting. And I had his full attention with those words,
Sure.
And so now we're gonna move 10 steps the other direction, and we're gonna sit next to a hot rod and see what he's got going on, which is fine. I don't blame him. I would have too. What I do blame him for is coming up though, little bastard. He, I just told him. I said, Jeff, you go. I said, don't call. Don't go through the secretary. I said, show up at the office. Tell her you want to speak to Miss Jackie Adair, and you tell her that Hot Rod Gig sent you. This was on a Sunday, okay?
Yeah.
James Storm was married on a Sunday. I found out after the fact. He went, just like I told him, on Monday, because I went to see Miss Jackie after I found out what happened. And he came in Monday morning. He was there when she come in the office. He was already outside waiting. He went and told him that the lady, the secretary, didn't know who I was, but because he had a name, she told him he was welcome to wait on her. She said, I'm glad you did, Rod. She at least told me thank you. And Wednesday, at that point, the Tennessee newspaper had gone from daily to like 3 or 4 times a week. And the Wednesday edition of the Tennessee newspaper was covering the story from Sunday, the wedding on Sunday, the meeting on Monday. Now we're at Wednesday. Wednesday mornings in Tennessee and had the full story of the brand new 5-year, $10 million deal between TNA Wrestling and Direct Insurance. Jeff Jarrett, Miss Jackie are there shaking hands on the front page. Congratulations to them. Awesome. I probably deserved a few thanks from the crew that got their paychecks because I made that recommendation because I was listening to Jeff at the wedding and having some drinks.
Sure.
The reason that I have no respect for Mr. Jarrett is because $10 million you know, that son of a bitch, and yes, I said son of a bitch, Jeff, that son of a bitch didn't give me the courtesy of a thank you, of an email. He didn't give me I didn't want to check. I didn't want any money. I would have appreciated a thank you. And the fact that Miss Jackie thanked me when she was the one shelling out the $10 million over the 5 years, I don't know if it actually got paid up or not, but that was the initial deal, was 5 years, $10 million that he would not have had. If I hadn't dropped the name to him and he hadn't dropped my name, he'd have never got it. That's what he was bitching about that caught my attention. $10 million. He had my email address. He had my phone number. I didn't get a text. I didn't get a phone call. And I lost what little respect I had for Mr. Jeff Jarrett right then and there. I let Mr. Storm know about it because, as I mentioned, me and Storm become real good friends. Storm offered to speak up on my behalf. I said, brother, I appreciate that, but please don't insult me by doing that. He made his decision. I made mine, and I didn't mean to get off on a sidebar, but every time I think that I'm a fairly peaceful man, Mr. Jimmy Street, but I would gouge him in the eye given the opportunity, just because that was the one time in professional wrestling, in business, in life, that I let somebody just disrespect me and I didn't at least call them out on it. So I just wanted to take that opportunity, not that you'll hear it, but Jeff, if you do, call me a liar. Go on a public forum and say that did not happen, and I will come kiss your ass in the spot of your choosing, brother. Not only the spot on your ass, but the location you want me to. Because you know as well as I do, that's what happened, brother. You should have, it doesn't matter now. It's all water under the bridge. Just a little bit of a sore spot simply because it was disrespectful. I would never have done that to him, but I also would never have recommended he go somewhere. I'd already declined a job with TNA. I didn't want a job. All the other guys can go around, do whatever they want to do for a job. I didn't want a job. I didn't want to cut. I didn't want a commission. I didn't want a thank you envelope. I would have appreciated a thank you email or a thank you text message. For $10 million, would you call me, Jimmy?
Of course.
I mean, who wouldn't? It just seemed like the right thing to do. So you can edit that whole thing out if you want to. I don't be mad at it. I'm just saying, but that's a legit thing. That's the only heat that I knowingly have in wrestling. I don't think anybody can say they're mad at me. They might have been mad at me in a moment, but I think I've got a pretty even keel with most of the guys I've worked with. I always treat everybody with respect, whether they treated me that way or not. I never hurt anybody on purpose. I apologize if something went wrong. I never no-showed an event, but I always said thank you because it's the right thing to do. The veterans taught me that. The veterans preached that. And here's a gentleman that I respected as a veteran who made a non-veteran move, and I will call him out on it any opportunity I get. This just happens to be the first public one. So thank you for that moment.
My pleasure, Hot Rod. And, we are kind of getting to the end of time here with you today. There's a list of names. I'm going to go over them real quick. Devon Day versus the Hero Killers with Norrie and Tim. Great tag teams. You got to work at USWO TV champ match with ODB. You worked with the Booty Call team. USWO, you worked LT Falk, Jablonski, Nick Iggy, Ricky Morton, Jason Nation again. Got a great feud in at the end with Jason Nation. Of course, you can never forget about Lex Victory and the Victory Twins. Then, of course, you and I get to meet up for the very first time, and this is in Saw. And now you and I had met randomly in different places, but never for long or never really got to know each other. I cannot end this show without talking to you about this. First of all, in Saw in 2013, I had just come out of the Prince Omar Al-Kazan character. I'd been able to hide behind that character. I had a little accent. I had all this stuff. It allowed me to hide behind that. Well, Kroll didn't want to put that gimmick on TV, and I totally understood it, never had a problem with it. Honestly, TJ came to me at the end of it and said, hey, Jimmy, are you okay with taking the gimmick off? Because that's the gimmick that TJ hired me with, And Kroll said, well, we're getting TV. He said, so let's go ahead and get you as Jimmy Street, because I'd been toying with that idea anyway. Well, long story short, I come out of that gimmick. I managed Plunky and Drew Haskins, and I sucked. I was horrible. I'll say it over again. I did not know how to be Jimmy Street. So what I did is I dropped out. I went to work for Tony Falk when he was running USWO in Millersville, and I found Jimmy Street again. I figured out what Jimmy Street was. So Kroll started seeing me, and I was doing better with it, and Kroll said, hey, brother, why don't you come back? Well, when I came back, they were doing some things, Nick Nitros, these different things. Wolfie D was there, some absolute great names there. But one of the great names I got to meet and get to know was Mr. Hot Rod Biggs. Hot Rod, I'll probably tear up thinking about this. But I listened to those videos, and I've never, Kroll put his all behind me. Shane Morton put his all behind me. LT Falk, Tony, they put their all behind me. But when I heard you and how much you would progress the storyline, and it may not mean a lot to you, but how much it means to me, I can never thank you for. How much you would put me over on that show. I'm going to do my poor little Hot Rod Biggs accent right now, but Jimmy Street, what's he doing tonight? Jack Johnson, will he get that victory? Will his man, and I'm sorry for the bad impersonation, brother.
No,
but
you're good, bro.
It meant the world to me to know that I was getting put over on TV when I didn't even know it. And you took the storyline that could have meant very little. I wasn't necessarily the greatest manager. I'll never say that. We know Athena was the greatest manager, or Paul Adams or somebody like that. But when it came down to it, you really took my gimmick and you pushed it to the moon. And even though I was out there doing the job or doing the work and working with Sean Hoodridge and working against Eric Andrews and working with all these great guys, but you were the man that actually helped push that storyline more than anybody, I'll say, because, Kroll let me do it. Kroll gave me the opportunity. But when we were out there, brother, you did it. You did me so many favors, and I can never thank you enough for them. And that's why I'll always say I have so much love in my heart for the man, Hot Rod Biggs, because, you could have just said what it was. Okay, this is more about Sean Hoodridge than it was Jimmy Street. But honestly, you gave me that element of tribute, and I'll never be able to thank you enough, brother. I greatly appreciate it.
Well, yeah, you are welcome, but I think you're thanking me a little too much and yourself not enough, because you, as you just stated, you were the man out there doing the work. I was just calling what was in front of me, and I vaguely, no disrespect, I vaguely remember some of those words you said, but I do remember that. But that was it's a double-edged sword. There, part of that, I was trying to do the best at my position there. Sure. For Cole, and the other side of that is, I remember when you came in, and I remember the foreign gimmick and the salute kid that you were with, and that deal. And I do remember. I would always go and Kroll and I would banter back and forth after the matches. We'd go grab something to eat somewhere with a group of folks and shoot ideas around and just toss stuff around. And I remember him being a little reluctant to push that gimmick on TV, not because, but maybe what you don't know is it had nothing to do with the actual gimmick. Kroll may beg to differ, but my recollection is it wasn't so much the gimmick itself, or that you were not doing anything right by that gimmick, or I promise you, I know Kroll well enough that he would have written that off altogether and not wanted you to come back to anything else, for you to leave to go, polish yourself and come back the way you did. That wouldn't have even been not that you couldn't have come back, but there wouldn't have been a gesture, and I can give you a metaphor for that momentarily. But it was a matter of that Kroll had, as he did with me, we get somewhere in professional wrestling on someone else's shoulders, and then we can run with the ball on our own. But somebody's got to bring us to the dance before we can dance, Sure. And Kroll brought me in the same way, so I appreciate the thank you. It has got nothing to do with the correlation. No correlation with the Jim Jarrett thanks, by the way. But thank you, I appreciate it. But or lack thereof, should I say. He seen that you had a legitimate talent. I mean, you were a nice enough guy, and you had something. He didn't know what it was, but he was reluctant to put that gimmick out there because that gimmick was going to do you more harm than good. And that's my recollection of the discussions.
Made sense.
Definitely more harm than good in the long run, because sometimes you get, it's almost like and this isn't the same, but it's kind of like the guys that turn babyface and then they're not babyface, and then they're a heel, and then they're a babyface, and then now they don't mean nothing because you done cussed them out in every way you could, and then you cheered for them and give you blood, sweat, and tears, and then they betrayed you by turning heel again. So when they turn babyface again, what the hell are you going to put your blood, sweat, and tears in that person for?
Sure,
and people
exactly.
lose their longevity by doing that. And that's why I did a babyface role for 2 matches in my career. I was always been a heel. I got the same, the whole deal. I get the same spiel, same music, same tights, same boot. I got the same pair of boots right now downstairs in my home that I bought from Bill Ash in Houston, Texas in 1995. The same pair of boots. I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And when it was broke, somebody said, hey, what do you think about fixing this? And in Crawl's defense, I don't think, and to your, could have been detrimental to you, perhaps. I don't know.
Sure.
It was good for what it was when it was, but Crawl has that vision that if everybody had Crawl's vision, Crawl wouldn't be Crawl. And
right.
Crawl had that vision, and I do recall him seeing something more in you and tossing some ideas around. I can't tell you specifically what they were, but it was getting away from that. And all due respect to that other kid, he was not a very fluent worker. So you had something to work with, but as you stated, Sean Hoodrich and Eric Andrews, and you named a who's who of independent wrestling, particularly in this area, just a moment ago. You went down the list, and would you have been there with the turban on?
No, I wouldn't have. And because I was hiding behind that,
I, for one, was glad to see Jimmy Street appear on the scene. And when you say the other name, it's vague to me. When you say Jimmy Street, if a fan comes up and asks me about Jimmy Street, I know exactly who they're talking about. I know exactly what you've done in wrestling, and I have fond memories of that. Regardless of what I on TV, that's legit. I remember Jimmy Street, and if I remember Jimmy Street, not because I was commentating, it was my spot on the team, and I want the team to win. If I win, what good does that do everybody? It don't do any. The team has to win, and then I can celebrate. So, I'm not trying to take anything away from what I said about you. If I said it, I promise you this, I meant it.
Yeah, I know you did.
Jack
and we got to put over Jack too. Jack was so good. Jack was so good. Y'all were so good together. I'm telling you, y'all were the Middle Tennessee Gorilla and Bobby. I'm telling you, y'all were so good together. And really, y'all could have been doing that anywhere. I'm telling you, you could be doing it right now on AEW, and you'd be the best in the game. I'm telling you.
That's a hell of a compliment, Mr. Street. Thank you for that. Jack Johnson, man, I know we're out of time. I'm not going to go on another tangent, but what a phenomenal. What a sad case. Do you know why Jack's not around anymore? Do you know the reason Jack lost his voice? Jack can't talk.
Oh, no. Okay.
What a phenomenal commentator he was. He did like there's some businesses, there's some, $1 million businesses in downtown Nashville that would do events every quarter where the CEOs would, put $50,000 a piece up and have, MMA shoot fights in a garage somewhere. And Jack would come in a tuxedo and do the announcing for this big fundraising event that these guys, raised millions of dollars and donate it to charity and go in there and legit fight each other. You got the accountant fighting the CEO of whatever. And was doing all that. And what a phenomenal person Jack is outside of wrestling. What a great
Cincinnati Reds fan too, by the way. Go Reds.
He loves his baseball. He loves his comics. Jack Johnson was something else. Jack Johnson is something else. Let me rephrase that.
Yeah.
I got to throw this out here. My favorite Jack Johnson line in my career is Jason Kincaid and I had been doing a hair match, hair versus hair gimmick. I cut his hair, and it was carrying it around in a Ziploc baggie. And like you, I didn't know in the moment because you don't get to hear the commentary when you're there wrestling. Right. And I watch the TV, and here I come out with the Ziploc baggie full of his hair. That's Jason Kincaid, and Johnson bust out with Hot Rod Biggs in a Ziploc baggie in the same sentence. That cannot lead anywhere good. And I thought, he's so quick-witted, man. He could just come up with the craziest, most off-the-wall thing about anybody. And he knew his wrestling. He knew his wrestling education far exceeded mine. And I thought I, knew it all. He paid attention to details I would never even thought to look for.
Sure.
They did my job. And I really hate that of all things for him to lose was his voice, when that's made him so much more special than so many of the rest of us. Jack, you hear this? I love you. Utmost respect, not only from Jimmy Street, but from Hot Rod Biggs, from all the fans down here, all the fans all over any area that heard your voice, Jack. we sure wish we could hear it again, brothers. Thank you for all the great times in the ring, out of the ring, at the house when he would stop by, when he, Jack lived 2 hours from Nashville. He would drive up and make that show, and he would drive up. When I had my surgery, and he just seen, I guess, through social media that I was recovering and may or may not recover, blah, blah, blah. I get a knock on my door during COVID season of all things. And it's Jack Johnson, he drove 2 hours just to come say hi to little old Hot Rod Biggs. And, what an honor that was. That's what kind of person Jack is, though. But yeah, what a phenomenal announcer he was, and quick-witted, and I didn't deserve to be sitting beside him, but I appreciate the compliment with that. But I'm going to circle back to something. I want to give you an example of the Jimmy Street transformation you talked about. It was so awesome to see you come back and own that moment. And you owned it every time you walked out. It was almost like I would equate it off the top of my head with no thought in it. I would equate it to a modern day, Gary Hart, maybe.
My God, brother.
One of those guys that they say he'd go out in a bulletproof vest because they know somebody's going to stab or shoot him. He had that kind of heat. And while I experienced some good heat in my time, and I walked out and had tires slashed in Shelbyville and windows busted out and cook, just different places. Somebody see me pull up, they get pissed off, they're going to go damage my car. So I can only imagine that kind of heat. You had that kind of heat on the level that it was available to us. You had that kind of heat.
Thank you.
When you walk out of that dressing room and you give that arrogant glance, like, what are you people doing breathing my air? That's what I got when you walked out. Like, what the hell? Why are you breathing my air? What's wrong with you? and people responded to that. You didn't have to say a word. But when you did say a word, it meant something. And that was, that's what makes managers, man. You took the ball and you ran with it. And, because you ran with it and you were good at what you were doing, because you won, the team won, and that's all. That's been my only perspective for anybody. As opposed to that, I don't know if this guy's a friend of yours or not, and I don't mean to say anything derogatory, but going back to Kroll and the decisions he makes going forward and who he includes and who he doesn't exclude, I'm going to give you just a real quick caveat. What is that kid? Dyron Flynn was the kid's name. Sure. And they had done a little gimmick, and Dyron, I don't mean any disrespect to you if you hear this. I don't know if he's even still alive. I ain't seen that kid in a decade or more. Yeah, if I have, I apologize. He is around, so I didn't even know. But I know that kid, he went on a tangent questioning one of Kroll's decisions, which was he had put a belt on Dyron at the sawmill. I'm fairly certain it was at the sawmill.
It was.
And he on Dyron, so you just know where I'm going with that. Then, so he put the belt on him, and then when it was time to not have the belt on him, this kid's, Kroll's hearing stuff in the back. We're all here. I don't want to single Kroll out. We're all hearing chattering. So, well, this guy's saying you done him wrong here, and you done him wrong there, and almost to the point where. I probably did actually say it out loud. I'm sure I did, because I know me. I was accused of doing this. I'm sure I did. I'm sure I did say, well, he wants to be booked so bad, book him. I'll work him. And it wasn't going to be a book. I wasn't mad at the kid, but I was tired of hearing these rumblings about he said, she said behind the scenes, because I don't operate like that, and I don't like anybody else who does. But what that kid, it was never personal. It was never anything like that, but he was upset that he didn't get his return match. Well, it wasn't about that. Wolfie D is actually the one that come in and took the belt, and he took the belt off of me, right. So I'm going to drop I don't remember how I wound up with nothing, but who am I compared to Wolfie D? Wolfie's a, worker among workers. Wolfie, I love you too, man. I ain't trying to kiss your ass, but truth is the truth. Wolfie's great talent. And, I
kiss it enough. It's okay.
What some people call ass kissing, I just call the truth.
Sure.
My perspective, it's the truth.
It's the truth.
If it's only the truth to me, it's my truth. Whatever.
Him dropping the title to Wolfie D should have been an honor, in my opinion. Now, he took it a little personal with Kroll. I didn't really like that. Darren and I are in a spot right now. We'll just not talk about that. But at the same time, I didn't like that he took it personal to Kroll. Kroll had some health issues I did not agree with. Dyron knew that I didn't agree with it, and I that's why I stayed with Kroll. At the same time, I could have continued managing Dyron, and we did not continue on at that point. And, Dyron and I had some great times together managing him, but at the same time...
I had some good matches with Dyron. I had nothing personal with him, but it did get to the point. And I say that to say this. He didn't understand the booking decision, and that's all it was. It wasn't a personal decision. It was a, are you going to buy a ticket? That would be like somebody choosing to buy a ticket to see Hot Rod Biggs or Jerry the King Lawler. Well, who are you going to pick? Yeah, I'm not going to pick Hot Rod Biggs of those two. Which would have my feelings be hurt? No, they wouldn't. I hate that kid's feelings were hurt over something that had nothing to do with his feelings, I guess is what I'm getting at. And I say that to go back to, I'm glad that you seen the light at the end of the tunnel winning Kroll. And this ain't got nothing to do with Kroll. It's just a wrestling situation that I hope the people listening to this may be thinking, if you're a worker and your butt hurt about something, get over it. It's not as personal as you probably make it out to sound, unless you've done something personal and only you would know that, whoever you may be. But you, Jimmy Street, you were... Instead of being offended, you took that opportunity to get away and see what you could do better. And you found it. Yeah. Self-admittedly, you found it.
Absolutely.
And would we be talking for a program that's going to be aired right now today? Would we be having this conversation? Would there be a Sheik Salute podcast? Probably not.
No, there wouldn't be.
There's a podcast because there's a means to an end. Did Kroll have some grand vision that you were going to have a podcast years down the road when he wanted you to do that? No, he was looking at what's going to help us sell tickets next week. What's going
to
people tune into the program? And Kroll's not right all the time either, but he was right in the situations he put me in, and I respect him for that. I love him for that. I appreciate him for that. And most of the time, his vision is right on point. And even in the instances when it's not, he's the man paying the bills. He's the boss. He's the company owner. Whether Tony Falk's the front man or whoever, TJ, TJ funded the bills, and TJ, wish you were still with us. Nothing but love for you.
Absolutely.
Me and TJ have history. I love, I'm so grateful for those opportunities. But I don't want to get sidetracked. It'd be like going to McDonald's and telling Ronald and Grimace to get the hell out because you got a better idea than they got. Well, they just sold hamburgers for some reason, so they got to be doing something right. You don't have to like their hamburgers, but don't go in and tell them they're doing their business wrong. And that's kind of, that goes on a lot in wrestling. Dyron, if you hear this, I'm sorry I threw you out there as the lamb, but that was the story that came to mind. When he said that kid's name popped in my head, and I just remembered that one situation. I'm sure it happened 1,000 times with other people who may or may not have spoke up. But Dyron, you're the name come up. All due respect, you and I had some good matches over the years, and not a bad worker. It ain't the greatest, but neither am I. But he was a good worker, and I appreciated my time. He was always respectful to me until... my friend's business is not, and Kroll ain't got any heat with him. I don't mean to insinuate that. That was just a business decision that worked out the way it should have. It just didn't benefit this one person. And I say that to congratulate you on what the steps you took to go out and find something better. Because you could very easily have just taken your ball and gone home and never wanted to come back. And would that have hurt Saul in the long run, or any fill in the letters, whatever? Maybe not. Probably not, though, because
probably not. No.
You can write somebody else in. But on the other hand, did it help Saul when you did come back? Absolutely, it did. Because if it didn't, I promise you, I wouldn't have. Well, I may have tried, but I wouldn't have tried to go the extra mile to make sure the fans understand your impact on a particular match or situation, an angle, whatever it is. And so the fact that I'd done that on television and put my reputation out there, as far as I can see it, to make sure that my approval of you or anybody for that matter, I'm just using you as the example, that my approval of you is should be a stamp, should be legitimate, should be, this is what I want you to think as the television viewer sitting home and giving us an hour of your time. Because, I mean, we go out and work by the hour, and we don't want to come to work for $7 an hour. So we don't want to go and waste an hour of our time equally. We don't want to waste our time at home because our time is valuable. And these people are giving us their money. They're driving to the shows. They're buying concessions. They're buying programs and pictures, and then they're going home and giving us their time, their personal time in their home by tuning in on television. We got to give them the respect that brings with it too. I mean, sure, I'm going to go out there and tell them they're no good rednecks because I want to sell them a ticket to come and watch me get beat up if that's what they want to see. So that's my job. But at the end of the day, I want them to be glad to come see me. I want them to know, and fans, I want you to know, if you ever bought a ticket to see Hot Rod Biggs, if you ever bought a ticket to see Jimmy Street or the Extreme Clown Posse or any of the numerous people that we've named during this conversation, during this proverbial car ride we're on, if you bought a ticket to see any of them, we thank you.
Absolutely.
Some guys may hate you for something you done. I was never, my job, and now it's not a big secret because wrestling has evolved, because of social media, what it is. The people think they know, the wizard behind the curtain. And a lot of times they do. So let me pull it back and say, thank you for buying a ticket to see Hot Rod Biggs. Thank you for coming to the Sawmill. Thank you for coming to all the various towns and spot shows. Thank you for the support. And even when you're out there slashing my tires and busting my windows and trying to stab me coming out of buildings in Shelbyville, you're still supporting me. It was an honor. It was a pleasure. And even though I'm an old crippled man now and I can't type right, I've just had to teach myself to play guitar again after, 30-something years and not being able to do it. I would do every bit of it over again. I wouldn't change a single thing. Even knowing the outcome, it was such an honor. It was such a privilege. All the guys, those that I put over, those who put me over, those we fought with, from Eric Andrews, and that's a whole nother podcast. That was Eric. I told Eric, that was my deal. The only person that I acted disrespectful towards and was wrong for doing it. I thank each and every one of you for coming out and seeing us. I thank guys for giving me the respect to trust me with your life in the ring, to trust me with your safety. Thank you for everything, because we all dreamed of this going into it, or we wouldn't be here. And now that we're here, I thank each and every one of you for allowing me to live my dream, because if you didn't put me over, I wasn't over.
Yeah. Amen. I mean, that's true. And, Hot Rod, brother, I know we could go on till the time ended today, but we definitely got to get you back for a part 2. And I think we'll give it a month or two, because I know there's so many guys we didn't get to talk about today because, we just kind of let it flow. And that's the way we like to do it on this show. But for one, I want to thank you. I know Jared, my co-host, he thanks you. And we just really appreciate you coming on and telling your story. And like I said, we'll get you back for a part 2, because like I said, I only got through half my notes because you're just such a good storyteller, brother. So I'm a long-winded talker, which has been detrimental to me over the years, in and outside of wrestling. So I apologize for not getting to you over this. I am at your disposal 24/7. You let me know if you need that. I would love to. I don't get the opportunity to talk wrestling much anymore, and I can't tell you what a pleasure it's been. I'm sure we ran way over time because of my long-winded ass. Let me throw this in. I promise I'll be quick within 90 seconds. I want to thank Shane and Steve Morton and Booty Call, Brian Turner, Dan Morrow, Goddess Athena. I want to thank Kroll and Jason Nation and both of the Victory Twins. Only one of them is still with us, but I've known them guys. They were literally in diapers. I mean, they're the closest things to brothers outside of wrestling I've ever had, and I don't see one of them, and the other one I can't see. And but I thank them for everything they've done. Lex Victor contributed to who Hot Rod Biggs became as much as anybody did. I thank Glenn Mullins and Gypsy Joe. I think I said the Mortons, but they deserve a double one if I did. Shane and Steve Morton. They come in. If it wasn't for those guys getting over the way they did, I would have never had the same opportunity. Jimmy, thank you. Jared, thank you. Brother.
all those out there listening, whether it's 5 or 500, thank you. If you've never seen a Hot Rod Biggs match, check one out on YouTube. I'm sure it can't be that hard to find. If you can hear a thrash tape that I had no idea was out there, none whatsoever, had no idea. If it's out there, check it out. Let me know what you think. Like it, love it, hate it. I don't give a damn. And if you don't listen to it, that's all good too. I still got nothing but love for you. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. And, I mean, wow, what a trip down memory lane it's been. I mean, I couldn't have done it without you. I damn sure wouldn't have done it without you. And I don't do anything but get up and go to work and come home and stare at the walls and watch Brian Turner's VHS rehab. So that's my life nowadays. So I don't get this opportunity often. I would take it anytime you make it available. And I'm very humbly thank you for taking the time to speak with me and pick my brain, man. It does the soul some good sometimes.
All right. Well, hey, we'll do it again soon, I promise. Hot Rod, love you, brother. Take care. We'll talk soon. Okay, buddy? All right, Jared, pleasure to meet you, sir. Jimmy.
Pleasure to meet you, too. Thank you.
For all your accomplishments. I hear y'all are doing well on this. I've not listened yet. I'm going to go back and check out some of the broadcasts that I know Jeff Daniels and Shane Morton, and I know different guys have done them. I'm going to start checking it out. I'm going to be a Jimmy Street fan all over again. Thank you for the opportunity, and I will talk to you when I talk to you.
All right. Sounds good, buddy. Have a good day. Take care. Well, that was the legendary Hot Rod Biggs. We'll be right back to wrap things up with the Plastic Sheik on Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling.
In a world that has been completely divided for so long, two movie fans have decided to unite for the people and the betterment of mankind. One, an action movie buff. The other, a horror movie fanatic. Together, they will try to bridge the gap of both genres into one podcast with their battle cry, Give Me Back My Action and Horror Movies. Listen along as Charlie and Nate alternate each week talking about action and horror movies they cherish, mostly from the VHS era. Also, including some modern examples that felt like the movies they grew up with by answering the battle cry, Give Me Back My Action and Horror Movies. Available wherever you listen to podcasts. Look them up on Facebook and Instagram.
If you're a pro wrestling fan, there's something for everyone at the Cheap Heat TV Podcast Network. From the Pro Wrestling Discussion Show, Cheap Heat TV Live, to the interview show, the Jackson Interaction Podcast with the king of all wrestling media, Gene Jackson, to the silliness of the Whitey Jenkins Show, and the brand new Zip, Xander's Irresistible Podcast with Charles Anders. You can check them all out and much more over at cheapheattvlive.com.
Oh man, Sheik, was that not cool or what? Hot Rod Biggs with the win. You know, one of his things was he would come out blowing a whistle and he would always say, "It must suck to be you." And he actually had it on his shirt that he wore.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So if you didn't listen to that interview, I truly must say this, that it must suck to be you, man. So wasn't it awesome, man? It was so good. Such a great interview.
Dude, he's so giving to us. I mean, I think he could have talked for 5 hours straight with us and it would have been nothing. Yeah. And, you know, it's kind of an honor for me sometimes when we talk to people like, you know, Jeff Daniels, Shane Morton, Hot Rod Biggs, Hammerjack, all those people, because, you know, unfortunately, I, like a lot of the world, haven't got to see these guys up close and personal in the ring. You can see them a lot of them on YouTube and stuff like that, but you've got to work so closely with them, and it's so awesome to talk to these people and hear their stories, and to know that, you know, just because you didn't see them on WWE every week doesn't mean that they didn't have an impact on the business. And
yeah, absolutely.
You know, you get these great stories. I mean, I love the Jeff Jarrett story, TNA stuff. That's good stuff, dude. I mean, like, yeah, and it just shows you how sometimes people can big time you. I mean,
oh, totally. Yeah,
Hot Rod, man, we appreciate you and thank you for the great interview. And it's just so cool for, you know, like a guy like me who unfortunately doesn't know a lot, and I can have little filler questions all over the place. But it's just great that, you know, somebody like Hot Rod can just talk and tell us stories without having been led that way. He just talks about the stories for us, and we can interject with questions as needed. But he just gives us a 100% in the interview. And you can't ask for more than that.
Oh, totally. Hot Rod is truly one of the best interviews out in that area too. He could always give a great realistic interview that was always very to the point. And then as a color commentator, dude, he was incredible. And him and Jack Johnson were the team at SAW. I implore anyone to go online, look up NWA SAW, and listen to Jack Johnson and Hot Rod Biggs do their commentary. One time, and I'm going to see how I can get this out. I don't know exactly how it'll get it on the internet there, but there is a clip of me doing color commentary because Hot Rod wasn't able to make it to a show, and it's for one match only, and it was pretty good. Jack led me through a lot, but I just kind of stayed in character as best I could. Out there in listener land, you guys think it's easy until you're sitting there and you know that the camera's running, the recording is on, and the match is going on. So it doesn't matter if you're sitting there freaking out. You got to make it happen or not. And I would have loved another crack at it, but unfortunately, I was busy doing the manager gimmick and Hot Rod was doing the gimmick. And it wasn't like it was something that was planned anyway. Kroll came up to me and said, "Hey man, you want to do this tonight for us?" And I said, "Of course I do. I'd love to try that." So that was a lot of fun. I'll try to find that clip sometime. The last time I listened to it, it wasn't the best, but it wasn't the worst. Let's just say that. Okay. So anyway.
Now imagine trying to do that like Michael Cole has had to do over the years with Vince yelling in your ear for 3 hours.
Oh, dude, I cannot imagine that whatsoever. It sounds brutal. God bless him.
Yeah, no doubt.
Because that is just crazy, man. An absolute billionaire maniac yelling in your ear. But anyway, thank you again, Hot Rod. Great episode. Can't wait to see how things go with this episode. I really do feel like there are people behind it. The next episode, normally we've been doing interview topic, but we got presented with such a great opportunity after the Shane Morton episode of interviewing one of the most legendary tag teams in Tennessee history, in Southeast, honestly, in Dante and the Great Mephisto. As you heard Hot Rod talk about there, Dante was on the show that Ric Flair and Kerry Von Erich wrestled for the title. I look back, Dante started wrestling in 75. Mephisto started wrestling in 77, 78, somewhere like that. He's Bobby Eaton's cousin. They were the Brown Bombers. They had the Blonde Bombers, of course, but then they also had the Brown Bombers, and this was all in Goulas, NWA Mid-America. And I tell you what, man, these two guys have a lot of history. I think Mephisto's actually wrestled against the Rockers in WWF. Anyway, a lot of cool stuff. Going to be a great interview, and we've got them coming up on the 25th of the month. So our very next episode, instead of going directly to a topic, we went ahead and said, yes, we've got to get these two guys. This will be our first tag team too, so I'm excited about that.
Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be great. Was that Larry Latham and Wayne Ferris and the Brown Bombers?
Yeah, Larry Latham and Wayne Ferris. Yes, sir. That's them. But anyway, this is going to be awesome, and I'm excited. Really, May is going to be a great month for the show. I'm excited to see how it is and where it goes. We did pass a year of doing this podcast, so we kind of just let that pass by because the official start date has kind of
changed,
been modified a bit. But without going too far into that, we just kind of realized that there was a later start date than we originally had, and that's just if you know. How about that? But anyway,
oh, you didn't know.
Yeah, exactly. Well, with that being said, I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this episode. I know it's been a long one, and thank you all so much for sticking around. Of course, find us always on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook group and page, and YouTube at GMBMPW. Also, wouldn't mind if you go ahead and support my other podcast with Wolfie D. You can do that at Live Wolfie D. Recently had Dennis Kelly on the episode. episode, a former Tennessee Titan, an NFL player. That was a very first NFL player I've ever interviewed. And we also have Drake Younger coming out as well on the 15th. So definitely check out those episodes if you don't mind, but for sure, definitely check out the next episode with us on the Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling podcast with Dante and the Great Mephisto, a legendary tag team. But anyway, thank you, Sheik, for coming around. Thank you, Sheik, for helping me with the heavy lifting today. So for the Plastic Sheik, Jared Street, I'm Jimmy Street, and we'll see y'all next time on Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling.
Don't forget,
it must suck to be you.
And subscribe on YouTube.
Yes. Hit that subscribe button. Daggone it.
With a tear in my eye. This is the greatest moment in my life.
We'll see you later.
This has been a James Rock Street production.